Welcome to the Great Distraction.
Hello everyone, this is The Great Distraction, and today the topic of discussion is part of our Altered States series and this one's on marijuana. My name is Ben, and with me today are my co-host Thomas.
How's it going?
And Glenn.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us. The Great Distraction is a podcast that focuses on a vast and random range of topics, and we hope that each episode leaves you with, if nothing else, something to ponder. As always, we would love to hear from you. Questions, comments, and topic suggestions are always welcome. You can contact us on Facebook or via email at greatdistractionpodcast@gmail.com. And just a reminder, if you are listening to our podcast on an Apple device, please take a second to leave us a rating and review and hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out with the rankings with Apple, and we just generally all around appreciate the love. So, back again on our Altered States series. The last one we did was the first. This is the second. We've got a lot more planned, but we're kind of, taking our time with all of our series topics. The last one was on alcohol. So if you missed that, I didn't write down what number it was. But
have a drink.
Yeah, there you go.
Have
a drink, give it a listen. It was only maybe, 5-6 episodes back, something like that. I'm sure you'll find it if you scroll through the list there. This one on marijuana. We chose alcohol because it was like, who doesn't already know about it? But it was kind of an easy one to break into the series and kind of get a feel for how we wanted to cover each of the drugs that we're going to cover in the Altered States series. Marijuana is along those same lines too, but there are less amount of people who have dabbled in marijuana than there are with alcohol. That's much more widespread. Basically, with this particular series, we're hoping to kind of accomplish what we're hoping to accomplish. There is just a little bit of background about the drug, in particular, how to use it, how it's commonly taken, variations of it, just a big general overview, costs to do it, effects of it. And then we ended off with a little bit of our own personal experiences with it, be it good or bad. And how it, and why we chose to use it or do consistently use it, one or the other, depending on what drug it is in particular. So on this particular topic of marijuana, we're going to focus more on the recreational use of it. There is a huge whole other topic side of the medicinal use of it. I'm sure we'll mention some of those things as we go through, but the primary focus of this particular series of Altered States is the recreational use of these drugs. So hopefully you're not looking for more of the pharmaceutical background because,
No, we're not doctors here.
No, that's a lot of that stuff is a lot of science.
Dr. Green Thumb, maybe.
Yeah, nice. I can start off with some Cypress Hill. Huh? Okay, I like it, dude. I will never forget the first.
We are talking about weed.
No, I never forget the first time I saw that video. Man, that guy he had those stupid buck teeth and that big old afro.
I can never remember the Cypress Hill song, but I used to listen to it on my way to work years ago. And they'd be driving something, and there was a horn. It was like, doot, doot. And it was like horn into the song.
I've heard it. I don't remember what it is now.
And it was almost, I swear it was a Chevy van, because I drove a Chevy van. It was the same song.
Like
so I'd be driving down to work, and I'd hear this, doot, doot. I'd honk my horn, doot, doot, like randomly. Singing the Cypress Hill song.
To the music you were listening
to.
Awesome. I like it.
Nice.
So let's start off with, what is this? What is this drug? Marijuana is a plant from the cannabinoid family, and within it there are a known 183 compounds, including at least 65 other cannabinoids, I guess contained within, again, not a botanist, but anyway, the main psychoactive part of cannabis is, I can never pronounce this word properly.
The THC.
Yeah, THC, tetrahydrocannabinol.
You did pretty good.
Cannabinol, tetrahydrocannabinol, THC, better known as.
Right.
It is the most commonly used illicit drug both in the world and in the United States. In the U.S., it started becoming illegal in 1906. In 2013, Uruguay was actually the first country to legalize the recreational use of marijuana. Countries with the highest use among adults as of 2018 are Zambia. I have no idea where Zambia is, but that is what they said.
I'm going to say Africa.
I said might be a safe bet. The United States, Canada, and Nigeria. And that data comes from the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. In 2016, 51% of the people in the United States had used cannabis in their lifetimes. About 12% had used it in the past year, and 7.3% had used it in the past month. So says Pew Research Center. Origins. Let's see. This part I thought was kind of interesting, and just real quick, because I'm not too big on the history stuff, and unless Thomas, he's more into history, but unless he went into the ancient history.
I only have one on the history.
Okay. So evidence suggests that it was being smoked for psychoactive effects at least 2,500 years BC, 2,500 years ago BC, in the Pamir Mountains. It's a mountain range in Central Asia. And if they found smoking apparatus, smoking tools in tombs, actually, buried with some of the dead. And marijuana, or the cannabinoid plant family, is actually indigenous to this area of Central Asia, so that kind of makes sense that that's where they first figured out how to smoke it. And originally it was used for, or it has been dated back in fabrics and ropes to the Neolithic age, which is 12,000 years ago, or roughly 10,000 BC. Methods of administration for this drug. Well, for the most part, it's smoking and eating. You might consider vaporizing it its own method of intake, but I guess really you're still smoking it.
It's still inhalation.
It's still inhalation, yeah. So basically inhalation and consumption for the most part. I tried looking to see if anyone had figured out how to inject THC or marijuana products.
I'm sure. I would think with the all the
oils,
think of the
stuff.
oil.
Yeah,
the oils.
Nobody's figured out a way to inject it yet, from what I could find.
Wow.
I don't think I'd really want to.
I know, it seems kind of odd.
When we get into the variations on this stuff and what's available out there, it is to the point now where there is no need, in my opinion, for anything more than what you can get now, because what you can get is pretty insane. We'll get to that here in a second.
Yeah, I mean, the weed that we smoke today is about 1,000 times more potent than it was 25 years ago.
And like 100 times more potent than people need, but
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll get
Hey,
to that.
speak for yourself.
Yeah,
man.
right? Oh, I know. I know what ears I'm speaking. Let's see. So dosage amounts. That's the next thing we covered. Again, I'm trying to follow a standardized format that we're kind of putting together
For the series.
Yeah, for this particular series, because I feel like it covers a lot of what we wanted to talk about with each particular drug in the series. So dosage amounts was the next thing we had covered. In the alcohol one, I'm kind of carrying that over from that, and we're adjusting it as we go along. The dosage amounts vary widely with what type of the drug that you do. So it's really difficult to say. Some drugs, it's real easy to say, oh, take 200 milligram, or take 5 milliliters of this one. This particular drug, I guess the best advice is start small, especially with edibles.
Especially with edibles.
And if you do consume anything, be it a tea, a cookie, a chocolate, a sucker, anything, wait a good 45 minutes plus before you ingest more.
I would say an hour is a rule of thumb.
I mean, at least. And if you've just eaten, definitely wait more. Because
but it's so much fun when you double dose and you don't so you eat a fair portion, and then some time goes by and you're like, man, I'm just not feeling this, so I'm gonna go ahead and
But to
double
me that goes back to the girl at the bar who just did a couple of shots, and 15 minutes later she's like, I don't feel drunk at all, so she does 6 more.
It's even worse than that.
Yeah.
I had a friend who had never played with anything marijuana related before, right? And she was young, and I gave her a chocolate. That's what it was, a couple of chocolates, right?
You're a horrible influence, man.
No, I told her specifically, cut one of these in half and don't take any more. Specific instructions. But here's some extras, in case not a whole lot, right? I don't remember how many it was. It wasn't. I didn't
doing
get
it with a human, so you never know what's going to turn.
So
out.
she goes home, has a little sleepover with one of her friends, right? And her friend comes over, crashes at her place that night. Yeah, whatever.
Wink, wink.
Yeah, and so she takes half, like I tell her. She waits an hour, doesn't feel anything. Takes another half, waits more, doesn't feel anything. Takes more. Next thing you know, she's calling me middle of the night, freaking out, because some people, they get super, super stony baloney, and they're happy about it. Oh, this is fun. Some people get freaked the fuck out.
Right.
So, and when you take too much, it's an easy way to get freaked the fuck out, because you can't control it, for one. But some people are like, oh, okay, it's cool. I can roll with this lack of control. Some people are like, no, pull back. Oh no, you bought the ticket. You're taking the ride. Have fun. Or worse, you give them something that tastes super, super good, and they're like, They get a little stony, and they're like, oh, get the munchies. Like, I'm going to have some more of that.
So years ago, when I was living in LA, I'm going to say 2006 or something like that, when my roommate Mark got his medical card, and back then it was expensive and it was hard to get medical cards, and he bought this little thing. It was called I want to say it was called Spliff or something like that. Anyway, it was like a peanut butter. And it was
instead of Jiffy, was Spliffy.
Yeah, something like that, like a Spliffy or something like that.
That sounds about right.
And so it was a peanut butter, and obviously it was edible. And so we were like, oh yeah, really cool. So we grabbed it and we got some wheat thins and we started scooping it out and eating wheat thins. And the first couple of bites tasted terrible. I was like, oh, this stuff is terrible. After like the third or fourth one, for some reason, it started tasting good.
It grew on you.
Grew on you. So you started eating it and eating it. Next thing you know, we had eaten half of the jar. I was high for probably 30 hours.
Yeah. It got me one time. Somebody made zucchini bread, and I had one
yeah.
slice. I was like, oh, that's great, man. And it just sat there, but I knew to stop, right? Next thing you know, the munchies kicks in. You're like, dude, you know what sounds great?
7 more of these.
Zucchini bread. Yeah, you keep eating, and the next thing you know, you're staring at the wall, and don't move me.
Yeah. Scared to walk.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Let's talk a little bit of like what I was alluding to just a few minutes ago there about variations on the drug. That was another section we covered in the last one here. There are many, many, many different variations of this drug. It is actually insane right now what they're doing with the industry because it is freshly legal and because there are constantly companies looking for new ways to deliver this drug and new products to make. They're like basically competing with each other on not
it's
just
like the wild, wild west out here.
Dude, it's insane. Well, not just here. It's all spread all over the country now all the states that have legalized, right? So not only are they coming up with new ways to market marijuana with strains and educating people, but they're also coming up with new ways to do the drug and new forms of the product that they're selling. Now, on the forefront, for the most part, when you start out, it's all flower that you're smoking, and they mainly break it into, I guess, 3 types, we'd say, right? Indica, sativas, and hybrids. Hybrids are a combination of the 2. But within those 3, there are, I don't know, probably thousands now, strains of different breeds, different strains of the plant that have different effects and different properties.
Think about dogs. How many different breeds of dogs are there? They all have their own little nuances, their own variations, but they're all canines. They're all the same species.
Yeah, you could even say you have small dog variants and big dog variants, right?
Pretty much.
And then all the different species within in those, right? It is that widely spread these days. And furthermore, with the recreational legalization, it's becoming, I joke about it sometimes with people who don't really know how the industry is, but it is more truth said in jest than anything else. The connoisseurism of marijuana is going like wine. There are such finite variations and particulars that people get a taste for and get a preference for. It's insane. Just like you'd have somebody talk about the tannins in this particular grape variety and how long they were aged.
Oh yeah, if you know anybody who's a wine snob,
yeah.
They'll talk about different flavors or these grapes were grown in this region versus this region. This is an Italian wine. This is a Greek wine. This is a Northern California wine. Well, it's the same thing with weed.
Yeah, those same complexities exist with weed, and there are certainly weed snob people out
Absolutely.
there.
I appreciate the weed snob, but at some point they get a little annoying.
Yeah. Especially when you just want to get high. It's like, dude, I don't want to pay extra. Just does it get me high? I'm good.
But I mean, but the thing is with the weed snob, though, being exposed in Northern California is definitely exposure to weed snobs. Oh, yeah. And I appreciate the hell out of it because it's really awesome. It's really awesome to be exposed to weeds that like have berry tastes and flavors and all these. And that's the thing with the oils and stuff too, with the shatters and everything else. And I mean, just all these different types of flavors and tastes and stuff. It's an amazing industry. It's cool to see it expand and grow to all these different things. And just like the wine industry, I think it's going to be a really fun thing to watch as it grows and people explore it a little bit more into the production.
Very much like beer is
Absolutely,
right now.
Yeah, like
craft
microbrewing.
brewery is exactly the same as the marijuana industry. It's except there's more variations in the marijuana industry than there are in the beer industry. there's the combinations of which the products that you can produce with marijuana are vastly in number, much more vast in number. So that's the most common that you're going to see or hear about when you see, or probably the first time you try, if you haven't tried, who this is kind of aimed at, I guess.
Something to be aware of with the different strains, which all these different varieties kind of fall into these two categories, and then the hybrid mixes, is the effect that they have. The indica strains are going to be more of your body high. You're going to feel that. It's going to be the one that puts you on the couch. You're going to want to just hang out, relax. It's great if you've got aches or pains, arthritis. You know, if that's part of the reason that you indulge in this particular substance. Whereas the sativa is going to be more of a mental high, less of the body feel. More, it can be more stimulating for creative outlets or listening to music or generally doing something.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the sativas because if I'm working on an art project or kind of come up with ideas or something like that, I smoke sativas almost exclusively because I like that effect of it. For me, anytime I smoke like the indicas, I feel like it just knocks me out. Like I just want to sit there and be a vegetable.
Because I just go to sleep.
Yeah,
I usually smoke it too, go to sleep.
I like smoking and enjoying the buzz.
Right.
You know.
So I tend to be more of the sativa guy myself.
Yeah. It just seems funner.
Oh yeah. Well, and then if I'm doing art, if I'm
right
working on a project, it doesn't put me out. It doesn't make me want to lay down and not do anything. It just
like re-energizes your brain and makes you want to like try things and like explore and I don't know.
Yeah,
right.
We'll talk more about that. I have a whole section on where we'll talk about the major differences in the types and more specifically. But yeah, that's what Glenn said is the gist of it for sure. Okay, so going back to variations, keef is probably the next. We're going to try and go in levels of potency. That's how I laid this list out. Keef is the next one. Keef is powder that is sifted from the leaves and flowers of cannabis plants and is either consumed in powder form or compressed to produce cakes of hashish.
Yep. Pretty much just the powdered remnants from the plant. A lot of grinders that people use will have a little keef tray with a screen to collect those THC crystals that fall off.
Yep. So imagine a powder, and like it said, there's our little compressors that you can buy that smash it into little discs, little hockey puck things of hash. Now we get into concentrates, because after that, everything just starts getting much more concentrated in the THC levels. When you talk about concentrates, it's usually compressing the plant matter down or extracting. Either way, you get a higher level of THC is typically what they're after with that stuff.
So the active ingredient, the THC crystal, grows on the outside of the plant. So the green leafy stuff doesn't do anything for you as far as an effect. So the less of that you can get in, the more concentrated, the purer the experience with the chemical.
The more that plant.
And I think a lot of people, and I'm glad we're having a conversation with Glenn, because Glenn has a plethora of information on this one. A lot of people think that the green plant is really what they want to smoke, and that's not it at all.
That just has, cannabis has 6 times the amount of tar than tobacco. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't really want to breathe that.
Yeah.
So part of the effect when somebody smokes and they cough a lot, and they say it gets them more high, that's oxygen deprivation. That's what you're feeling there.
Because of the tar?
Because of the tar, because of the coughing, because of the smoke, the particulates in your lungs.
Got it.
It's you're reducing your body's ability to absorb oxygen for a short period of time. That's what's creating that lightheaded effect. It's not an increased amount of THC in your system.
Go whip it.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah, the grinders that have a really good screen to them, and you can always tell because there's grinders that just won't let it. The screen sucks and it just won't break through.
It just sits on the top of the screen.
Yeah, it does suck. But the ones with a good grinder where you can really get it down there and you get a really good keef in the bottom of those things are awesome. I have this little bitty grinder in the shop. It's just like it's about as big as a quarter. Everybody makes fun of it because it's so small.
It's ridiculous.
Dude, that thing is the greatest collector.
Yeah, but it's a space case too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a really
It's-
really high end brand
Yes,
grinder,
but it's just a really
just-
small-
it's like a portable grinder. It looks like a
Right.
little lipstick thing. Tiny,
But dude,
like half a thing of lipstick.
Did you crack that bottom open? The key from the bottom there is just such a rich. You're just like, oh my god.
Okay, let's get into rosin. Rosin is a sticky substance created when heat and compression meet a bud of cannabis flower. It is made using the entire cannabis bud.
Yep. So the rosin, you usually use a press. I've seen it done with hair straighteners. Mm-hmm. People use a hair straightener and a clamp to
said
squeeze the...
T-shirt presses, they use them too. The heat transfer T-shirt presses.
Totally.
Wow.
And it works pretty well. You don't want to have a heat plate that's over 200 degrees because
you'll
you'll
burn it.
start burning the plant and the oils.
So you're just trying to get it warm enough that you can separate it.
Yeah, it's like squeezing an orange or 11. You know,
Okay.
You're not separating anything at this point.
yeah, so you're
Okay.
heating up the oil, the THC, so that it's gonna become
Liquid.
Yeah, liquidy.
Yeah, but it includes the plant matter too. That's the thing.
Well,
That's the key with rosin.
It does. You get like the terpenes and some of the flavor. They kind of get squeezed out of it too. So it's not pure THC, but you do have.
But you don't want to
Plant-
burn it or get it too
Right.
hot because it.
You don't want to change the chemical profile with heat.
Okay, got it.
So yeah,
Okay, that brings us to tinctures, the next one. Tinctures are cannabinoids that can be extracted from cannabis plant matter using high-proof spirits, typically Everclear or often a grain alcohol, to create a tincture, and it is drank.
you can also do some surface applications with those.
Yeah.
People use that they'll make a tincture to rub on like a sore joint or
Topical
whatnot.
applications, that's right. I completely forgot to mention that. That is another method of administration, is a topical application.
And the tinctures too. Back when I lived in LA, back when it was expensive to get a medical card, one of the doctors that I went to was big into the tinctures, and that was my first real exposure to it. And I bought a couple of tinctures, and he would put a couple of drops like under your tongue or something like that. Or I forget exactly.
yeah,
how
I've
it
had
was.
CBD. I've tried CBD that way.
Well, it
multiple
was
times.
a tincture, though.
But yeah.
It wasn't, and it was like, and so instead of smoking, because there are lots of people who have like asthma and things like that don't necessarily want to smoke, but want to feel that high, and that was the way that he was like. He's like, yeah, I don't really like smoking. I never smoked cigarettes. I don't like smoking joints, things like that. So he would do the tinctures, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And I tried it a few times. I was like, wow, it's pretty potent.
Oh,
Yeah.
it absolutely
In
can be.
general.
Well,
Sure.
it's kind of like an edible as far as
Yeah.
how it.
Yeah, and that was kind of what I did that before I really got exposed to the edibles.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah, and there are also lotions that are made too, right? That are topical
Balms.
applications.
I have one that
Yes,
I use on
balms.
my knees all the time. That's I don't know exactly what it is, but it's it's just like looks like a regular balm that you would buy at Target or whatever. And I rub it on my knees, and it's obviously topical. But it'll remove the pain. Like I have like sort of like arthritis sort of pains in my knee and the joints and stuff. And I rub it on that. I fall asleep, and my knees feel amazing. I can actually sleep without any sort of pain.
Yeah,
Oh,
I've-
yeah.
I've known people who've used it on their lower back for lower back
Mm-hmm.
pains and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people try to I think a lot of old people try to discourage the medical thing and say, oh, well, you just want to get high. But if you look at the plant in general now, actually all the medical applications for it, and I've tried a lot of medical applications because of the balms and topical things like that, there is an amazing amount of usages for cannabis in general.
Absolutely. Okay, next up in THC level or concentration, let's see what I have here. Oh, hashish or hash. And these are concentrated resin discs or balls produced from pressed
He said
key
balls.
produced from pressed keef is another way. Consumed orally or smoked, and you can also vaporize them. Going further, hash oil, or just typically called oil. This comes in quite a few different forms. There's THC honey oil, CO2 extracted oil, BHO, which is uses butane extracted oil, distillate, and one that seems to be growing in popularity depending on where you are located, the Rick Simpson oil, which, as I understand it, is a guy who has created a website and gotten known for the process to do your own oil extraction at home. And he kind of, you can Google Rick Simpson oil if you're curious. But apparently his method is geared towards obtaining the highest THC level you can get out of oils. So that's kind of his whole motivation. I didn't read too much of the website, but if you're curious, you can check it out. So he's kind of got his own name coined with it, I guess. That's from what I was reading. I hadn't heard of it before I started doing research of this topic, but apparently he's trying to make a name for himself on the internet.
It's new by me.
Yeah, exactly. Well, around here, it's so easy for us to get oils that maybe a lot of people aren't interested in trying to make it at home, right? In other places, that might be big because a lot of people can't get oils.
Isn't the butane ones? That's the ones you always hear about, the garage fires.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
much.
very flammable, and they
If you're doing any of these chemical astringent washes on your plant to pull the THC out, you are going to end up with chemical contamination to some degree.
Yep.
Alcohol is probably one of the better ones to use just because it does evaporate pretty clean, but still you're going to end up with some contaminant.
So with the presses, with the low temperature press, is that sort of avoid that or something?
The rosin press doesn't introduce anything
uses
chemically.
heat.
It's just using heat to separate your materials.
But the BHO extractor that actually uses butane to burn off the plant matter and pass it through as a gas.
I feel like those are the ones you always hear about on the news where there was an explosion of some
that is the one.
People doing
some hillbilly's garage in the suburbs.
Yeah, because it's easier to get BHO. It's easier to get butane than it is CO2, I guess, is the reason they don't go the CO2 route, or maybe it's just easier. I never tried to extract my own oil. So oil is thicker liquid than a tincture, but viscous enough not to be a solid. It's very popular in the vape pens that you see, and it can also be placed inside capsules for oral ingestion. Next one up, shatter. Shatter is a solid substance which resembles a honey-colored glass shard. Typically, people will break it up with a dab tool. We'll get into dabbing in a minute here. It breaks into pieces or shatters, hence the name. It is one of the most recognized concentrates, and as it's easy to manipulate and far less messy than some of the other varieties of extracts.
I disagree with that. I think shatter is one of the most messy ones I've ever done.
Oh, breaks all over the freaking place. And then it gets warm and sticky and turns into a freaking mess.
Yeah, it's like you got to put it in a freezer and put it in the like
well, people usually freeze it,
Yeah, what's that paper called? That parchment paper or some kind of thing like that. Put it in
the
there
wax paper.
The wax paper. You put it in and freeze it so you can break it up so it doesn't stick to everything. And then you got to try to vapor.
That's a good point. I wonder why they said that. I'm reading this off of a source.
I actually jumped to the vape pens and stuff like that because I had started trying to use the shatters in a dab rig, and the shatters were such a horribly messy thing. And then it gets a little bit warm, and it gets sticky, and then it gets hooked to everything. It's over. It just became like a catastrophe to deal with for me.
So when we got into
waxes,
we're getting there. We're getting there. When I mentioned the getting into the concentrates, what we've been covering here so far. Thomas mentioned a dab rig. So for those that don't know, a dab rig looks very much like a bong. If you don't know the difference, you wouldn't notice any difference at all. It is a bong. Typically, they use different types of, bowl. Sometimes they're titanium nails.
It's usually a quartz nail, isn't it, Glenn?
Well, sometimes they're titanium, sometimes they're quartz.
They use both.
Both.
There's several different options. Sometimes they're e-nails. You don't light them at all. And typically what people will do is they'll preheat that bowl with what looks like a torch. It's literally a torch, not a lighter. It's an actual torch.
Little butane
torch, yeah. And you heat it up to a certain point, and people will try and measure the temperatures and burn the product off inside there at a certain level or certain temperature or whatnot. Anyway, you drop the product in there, it immediately vaporizes, and you suck it in through the bottle, through the bong, and through the water filtration, and it gives you an extremely clean hit. However, all of these concentrates put the THC level extremely high. So, for example, again, for those that don't know, your typical weed that you buy in a legal state is, vary anywhere from 9% THC to 26% THC. That's extremely high. Putting your average, who knows, maybe 12 to 15%.
We're talking about the actual flower.
We're talking the flower, yeah. If you're going to buy a joint, or you're going to buy the plant itself and put it in a glass pipe or something like that, or even a bong, whatever. That stuff ranges in that range for THC percentages, right? So if you get 25% THC flower, it's some hard hitting shit. Concentrates, all of these ones that we've been talking about and we're going to continue talking about here, start at typically around 40, mid 40s. I don't think I've seen anything lower than 46, 47, somewhere around there.
About right, yeah.
Okay, all the way up to typically 82.
I've seen one up to 92.
You've seen,
wow.
And what was that? Not the string. What was it in? What form? Was it a wax? Was it a?
It was I believe it was almost like a shatter type.
Really?
Yeah.
92.
Well, no, that was a sugar. It had the solid THC
It was a
crystals.
crystalline.
Yeah.
That's different. Okay, so we'll get to that. Okay, so usually these waxes, oils, shatters, pull and snap, which I'll talk about next, they usually go up to about, I think in the mid 80s, somewhere around there. And the difference between that is fucking night and day, dude. It's if you don't smoke, one hit of that will usually lay you on your ass.
That'll be enough for the night.
Yeah, I mean, but the cool part is, and they're more expensive. We'll get into cost too. But the cool part is, if you don't like smoking, when you dab or vaporize or atomize, it's like almost like you barely get any smoke. You get no smoke at all, really. You get a flavor of the product, and you take one hit that's usually not that big. You can make it as big as you want, obviously, but so essentially you can get that drug into you super fast, super easy. You're probably going to cough if you take a big enough hit, but whatever. It's very smooth, and you only have to do it once. Then you go about your business. And
you're not smoking paper like in a joint or
no,
something like that. That was the thing for me is I was never really a cigarette smoker. It's like joints and things like that. So when like the vaping came out and the dab rigs came out, to me it seemed at first I was like a little apprehensive, but after trying them, it was such a clean, easy. I mean, it's just so clean and easy that it's just a really pleasant taste, and a lot of them have a really pleasant taste to them.
Yes.
And then also the quality of the high is a lot cleaner too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that the concentrates, they just my personal experience, I don't get paranoid or like some of the head fog stuff isn't present with it.
Yeah, I think the head fog thing you're talking about, that like smoking joints and stuff like that. Like I grew up in the Midwest and everybody smoked cigarettes. So when they smoke weed, they smoke joints. It's just the way the thing. But out here, hardly anybody smokes a joint. You know, I mean, I know a few people do, but most people I know that smoke weed either do dab rigs or they have a really nice glass pipes or something like that. But the dab rigs it's so clean. It's tastes good. It's a really nice mellow high. It's just a nice feel. It made me appreciate weed in a completely different level.
Yeah, agreed. So another comparison I can give is before I had, I never smoked cigarettes like habitually. I tried it many, many times and hated it every single time I tried it.
It's terrible.
It hurts.
So
and
you just kept trying it.
I don't really know why, but I did. Gave it a fair chance there. And not that I wanted to start. I just trying to understand what was so appealing about it, I guess, right? So hated those, very harsh, hurt my lungs, hurt everything that touched it.
That's
basically.
how joints are to me.
Okay. But then somebody I'll never forget. I was around the Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco, and I walked into a head shop that was in there, and the guy had set up a hookah, and they had little mouthpieces that they were letting people use or whatever. And I had never hit a hookah before. And he's like, "Here, man, go ahead, have a hit or something like that." I was like, "Well, okay." I thought it was weed because I'm in a head shop, right? And I'm like, "Oh, fuck, dude, I'm not trying to get fucked up. I got to drive us out of here. It's hell stressful driving in San Francisco. I don't think I should get high." He's like, "Dude, it's not weed. It's hookah." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I don't smoke whatever the fuck that is. I don't know what the hell smoke anything else, right?" So he's like, "Just try it, man." It's like I told him again. I didn't stop here. I was gonna fight this guy, right? I said, "I don't smoke cigarettes. I don't smoke cigarettes either." And he's like, "Dude, just try it." Okay, so I tried. That was ridiculously smooth. Like I did no cough, no nothing. It just went down and in and out. Tasted amazing. Now there's a lot of chemicals in hookah, so I don't recommend that too much. But
I'm not trying to advocate for it.
Yeah, not trying to sell it like it's something special. It's nice every once in a while. But my point is that if you don't smoke cigarettes because you hate them, but you've tried hookah and you're like you noticed the difference, that's the difference between smoking out of a pipe or a joint versus vaporizing or dabbing your product, your marijuana product.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm getting at for that long-winded
that's a good
analogy I was trying to make there. Okay, next one up, pull and snap. Looks very similar to shatter, but has an almost taffy-like consistency. I always considered that it was a shatter that got like melted or something. Like I don't know, but I guess it is.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever experienced these or not.
I don't know.
I'm a big wax person. I like the waxes.
We're almost there. That's the next one here. Okay, so yeah, wax resembles a texture of candle wax.
Right.
Yeah, it's another concentrate again with the percentages up to like early mid 80s%. Then we get into the super highs. Distillate. It is refined or distilled. It is a refined or distilled version of a cannabis extract. After the extraction, so after it's been made into an oil or any of the other stuff we've been talking about, the distillate is run through a purification process several times, and the result is a liquid, clarified distillate, much like honey in color and consistency. Again, further concentrating it down. The last one, which I have never seen in person, from what Glenn was describing, maybe this was this. I don't know. I don't know how it's sold, and I've never smoked it, and I probably won't bother with it, but I don't know. Maybe it might be fun.
The night's early.
Hey, don't knock it before you try it, man.
I mean, damn, this is like the equivalent. So crystalline, is it? And crystalline reminds me of the equivalent of, oh, man, I like drinking. Yeah, I'll do a couple shots of whiskey or more than a couple, whatever. I got my good 80, 90 proof alcohol, right? I don't need Everclear at 190 proof or 198 proof, right? It's like that's what this reminds me of, right? So a crystalline is a solid extract that has been through many processes and filters in order to destroy the plant matter remaining in the extract, preserve THC, and remove any leftover solvents. The remnants are clear crystals that boast up to 99% THC.
Yeah, these things are awesome.
Yeah.
Definitely a way to go. A lot of times they'll sell it as they'll call it like a sugar. And what it has is the crystal base for the THC, and then they'll put in a extracted terpene profile, and they'll kind of drench it in that, so you get the flavor of, or whatever sort of tailored flavor you want with solid crystallized THC to act as the.
So this is what. So I've heard the term sugar before, and I never really thought about it that much. So that's the difference.
Yeah. Well, it looks like if you pour out some sugar on a plate and get it a little bit wet, how it's kind of got that tacky sort of
Yeah. Clear
grainy
grains.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's
Wow. Now I'm intrigued.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. And again, if you're just starting out, definitely don't mess with any of that
Right.
stuff.
So is the sugar, that's more of a dab rig kind of a
yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I think everything's dab rig once you get into
Well, I
concentrates.
think, and the thing is, if you're new to marijuana, like anything on the planet, be very cautious and be very controlled about what you do. I've always handled marijuana like alcohol. I don't drink alcohol if I'm going to drive or do anything important. I don't smoke if I'm going to drive or do anything important.
Yeah.
I'm an adult and I'm trying to enjoy things for recreational purposes.
Yeah.
In the world of marijuana, it's definitely a learning curve, just like drinking.
Just like drinking.
If you've never drank before and somebody hands you a shot of Everclear,
You end up throwing up in the corner, embarrassing all your friends.
yeah. So I mean, it's the same kind of thing.
It's exactly the same kind of thing. And most people actually count their dosage, their self-dosing of alcohol, right? I mean, who doesn't? Man, I've had 7 beers tonight. Who doesn't somehow keep track? Or 15 shots? Or yeah, you'd be dead. 5 shots. Let's say 5 shots. My bad.
If you can count after 6, you're doing pretty good.
Yeah, so most people do keep a mental track to some degree, because if it's not bragging rights, it's just how fucking deep am I into this right now, When you start seeing the trails and the mirrors and triplets of yourself, you're like, damn, I think I've taken a lot here.
And learn yourself too. Just like with drinking,
thing,
with drinking, if I do a shot, I chase it with water.
Yeah.
I keep hydrated.
Not all the time, because I got stories of Thomas.
Shut up.
I got stories of Thomas chasing what is it? Your Irk and Jerk shots with what the hell? Mickey's grenades.
Mickey's grenades.
Oh man, yeah, brutal.
But that goes back into that being responsible about things and enjoying them for what they are and being an adult about things. I mean, I think one of the big stigmatisms that marijuana has had for years is because people think it's this like gateway drug to all these horrible things, whatever. And I've said it before, alcohol to me is the gateway drug. But when it comes to, using any sort of substance at all, learn yourself and learn what works for you. Try a couple things in a safe environment where you're okay. If you're at home and you're drinking, who's going to say anything to you? You're having a few drinks. I feel it's the same way for marijuana. If you're at home, you're kicking it Saturday night, you're chilling with your family or whatever, and you want to smoke a bowl or something, that's just a relaxing adult thing to do.
Yeah, you're not going to hurt anybody. I mean, you keep it simple, keep it safe, and you're fine.
Yeah, and trying the things. We're talking about the dab rig. We should talk about the dab rig a little bit more, because a lot of people I talk to don't really know what a dab rig is. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting, because I'm around people like Glenn who work with glass, I was exposed to like the quartz and the different glass with dab rigs and things like that. To me, it was a little bit complicated trying to read the glass and trying to read the quartz to figure out what kind of temperature it was. I ended up investing in an e-nail. And an e-nail is basically a dab rig with an electronic heat element. And so I bought a heating element that has a little control panel, and you can set the temperature that you want it to be. And a good temperature for burning concentrates is about 575. It's a pretty standard temperature. And so I have a little rig that shows you what the temperature is and what your program temperature is. So it'll warm up an nail, and it surrounds the little nail. And when it gets down to the temperature one, it's a low. And the thing with concentrates is you want to burn them at a low temperature. You don't want to burn these.
You want to vaporize
them, which is a very different thing. And if you can vaporize these things at a lower temperature, like the 575 seems to be, I've discovered for me, 575 is a nice mellow temperature to burn these at. And so it's a real mellow intake. I mean, it's smooth. It doesn't hurt my throat. It's a really nice, mellow hit.
Yeah, so let's move that up. Actually, I was going to talk about that. That's the next section, the administration of the drug. But let's talk about that's a great. As far as vaporizing, smoking, atomizing, whatever. Let me add a little bit to that e-nail thing. So there is actually a good amount of science that's going on as far as the best way to take these concentrates, use these concentrates, and actually burn off the product or vaporize it or whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of terms for the same thing. That e-nail thing is pretty fascinating. If you're into any sciencey or technology or electronics or whatever, you'll appreciate the nature of this. It's a coil that wraps around a metal nail, and there is a frequency, very high frequency, that's passed through the electrical wire that's wrapped around the nail, and it actually causes essentially the atoms in the nail to shake. And this is kind of the same process as your microwave works, except it's not microwave. But nevertheless, as it shakes those atoms in that metal, it excites them and makes them very hot. And simultaneously, at the same time, running that wire that's wrapped around that nail is another wire that is called a thermocouple. And that thermocouple measures the temperature. So now you have two things. You have a variable knob that changes the frequency. Not that you don't know that it's doing this, but you think you're adjusting the heat level, right? And it's feeding back the temperature on the little display of the unit, so you can see what your temperature is. And if it's a better quality e-nail controller, it will actually hold. I can't remember what that microcontroller is called, peripheral integral differential, something like PID. Anyway, it'll actually hold a temperature that you set based on controlling that frequency and reading back in the closed loop system the temperature that it gets back through the thermocouple. So the sound of that, right? That's pretty freaking crazy if you're smoking weed.
Right. I mean, it's a little sciencey.
Yeah, and when we were talking earlier about dabbing with quartz nails and torches. Getting a consistency with a torch, as you can imagine, I'm going to hold this super hot open flame over this thing. It's kind of tough. So what some people are doing is they're actually carrying around those infrared thermometers, those handheld infrared thermometers, and they are heating the nail, pulling it away, zapping the bottom of the nail with where they would put the product, and measuring it with the IR thermometer to see when the temperature gets to where they want it to. When it gets to where they want it to, so usually, sometimes this takes two people to do this for you if somebody isn't versed in it enough. But I've seen lots of people do it with one, themselves or whatever. When it gets to the temperature they want, they set down the IR thermometer, pick up the rig, tilt it, get their little dab ready on a little dab poker, drop it in the nail, let it burn off, and suck it up. And that's it. So then they can get a more consistent burn off of the product. So they're not overburning and losing some of the product, underburning and not having it cook, and then creating a sticky mess on the bottom of their quartz nail. And quartz nails are expensive too, so you really don't want to mess them up. There's reasons.
Hard to clean.
I didn't
say they're hard to clean, but if you burn something in them, they seem to be hard.
Yeah, it's a pain. Imagine if you ever had like a glass pot or pan or whatever, and you burn
Pyrex.
Rice on the bottom of it or something. Yeah, you're going to be soaking that thing for a couple days to get it clean. It's brutal. It's along the same lines as that. And then atomizing is, I don't know, I was actually hoping Glenn could describe this one. Okay, the volcano, right?
Yeah.
Volcano's been around for like decades now, right?
Years.
I mean, this thing's old. Volcano looks like a volcano. It's a product. You can Google it if you're curious. And it atomizes straight flour. You just put flour in it. So how does that work?
Essentially, you have a chamber with like a ceramic heating element, and it just heats to a specific temperature. It vaporizes the oils. Any of the moisture in the plant gets vaporized with that.
Wait, it has a fan in it, right?
Yes. So it sits in a chamber. You have air blowing from underneath to blow this. Essentially, it heats up the.
It's an air fryer.
Yeah, totally.
It's a fucking air fryer, dude.
Totally. So and then it fills up that bag with that.
Yeah. So imagine a device that's shaped like a round pyramid or a cone, like a cone. That's what a cone with the bottom side, like a volcano. Hence the name. Stupid. Anyway, then they come with these plastic bags that are maybe 6-inch diameter, 8-inch, something like that, and you hook them to the top of this thing, and you stick the plant matter in there. And like Glenn was describing, I guess it's a freaking hot air fryer, deep fryer, or air fryer, or whatever, right? Just like those ones that they're selling to make your French fries with no oil, right? Same concept. All those things are convection ovens with stronger fans that move and get hotter. Well, actually, no, conventional oven can just as get hot, but it has a stronger fan to blow the air around, right? To cook with air heat instead of physically using like burning oil or something in a regular.
Instead of
deep fryer.
using, like the one thing too, like butane. Like a lot of people that are weed snobs don't like using butane, and they'll use like a wick or something.
Yes.
Or
I don't like using.
I use a piece of hot glass.
hot glass. Yeah, even better.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I'll take being a glass worker, I'm always in the glass studio. It's
Yeah.
just part of my
Yeah.
situation. But I'll take a clear glass rod
gonna say clear
and
rod,
I'll
right?
heat it up and then wait till it stops
Glowing.
glowing. Yeah, so there's no light
So it's
coming
not
off
molten.
Yeah.
it. Right. So no light when it's in shadow, and then use that. Just tap it to the side, and it.
Yeah, it's just a heat.
Nice.
So it's a heat source to burn it, and that's the thing. Like with butane, like when I go back east and hang out with a lot of my friends back there, they smoke joints and they'll light it with a butane lighter and they smoke in paper and all stuff. And I'm like, these are all these chemicals and things that you ingest, and that's what gives you sore throats, headaches, all this other
Lung
stuff.
irritation.
Lung irritation.
We'll get
all
into
these
some
things.
bad
Yeah.
side effects of that. So anyway, you got this bag and you hook it to the top and you let the fan blow up and it blows up the bag, and the bag is long and cylindrical. So it looks like you're blowing up like a balloon animal or something, right? And then when it fills up, you can actually pinch it off, tie it off, and you have a bag filled with clear THC smoke. So you can hit this bag throughout the day, multiple times, whatever, whenever you feel like. And this thing's been out for, like I said, 15 years. Well,
Oh, at least.
it's been out at least 20
Probably-
years, because I
yeah.
remember,
I remember these in the 90s.
Yeah, it's been out 20 years, and they still make the product. They're very expensive. I want to say they're like $600-700,
They got that at pricey.
600 to 800, because it carries because of that nostalgic. It
okay.
is the volcanoes.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, it's the only one that works like that. But what was that one that we were seeing? The new one that we just saw it at DFO. With the big, had the display.
Puffco.
Puffco is another type, I think, or is that oil though?
It's for oil. It's for
That's for
concentrates.
oil, so it's not for plant like that. See, I don't think anything does
But the industry is getting away from the plant matter. I
Yeah.
mean, really, the concentrates are.
They're taking over.
They
really
are.
Yeah. Well, what was the one? I had one for a long time. It was like a little box with a wooden box. It was a heating element, and it had a tube, a glass tube, and you would pack the
whip.
yeah, it
thing.
had the whip in it, and you would pack your flour into it, and it would heat it from a heating element, and and it was a really clean. That was before vaping really got popular, and that was kind of like a crossway between like the volcano and vaping.
Okay.
And it was a really clean source, but you would still burn flour in it.
The only thing I didn't like about those was it got really hot at the front, and
Yeah.
it would like almost burn the material.
Yeah,
It would dry it out
man.
way too fast,
Uneven heat
and then
distribution.
right.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wanted to comment too. One of the things that Thomas had mentioned was some people use hemp wick. So if you have your flour in a glass pipe, or I guess you could use it for a joint too. Anything that any way that you smoke it with direct flame, you can buy what is called hemp wick, which is typically an organic, like a small rope or string of hemp. And I think they wax coat it too, right?
Beeswax.
Beeswax. Where they'll use if you get good stuff, it'll be clean hemp and with organic beeswax, right? And you light that, and it's like holding the wick of a candle. It just sits there and burns like a little flame, just like a
Instead of
candle.
using the butane from a torch.
Yeah, and then you put that near your bowl or however you're
You
lighting.
use that as your ignition
Yeah,
source.
use that as your lighter, essentially. Yeah, and then you can light it from there, and that stuff's awesome. I've seen,
Yeah.
like if you have a little glass pipe, a spoon, or any type of little 3, 4 inch, 5 inch pipe or whatever, people will wrap that around and tie it onto the stem or whatever of their pipe, and then unravel it as they need it, and just use that because they don't want to use lighters. You still have to carry a lighter or a match with you because you got to start the flame some way.
Yeah, but at least it's eliminating the butane, because you don't want to smoke butane. You don't want to inhale butane.
Oh, another great one is magnifying glass.
Yeah, if you're doing direct sunlight.
Yeah,
right?
if you're outdoors and daylight.
Yeah, the heated glass is my favorite one from the glass blowers. I'm sure most glass blowers probably smoke that way, because taking a piece of clear glass and heating it and using that for your heat source. To me, that's awesome. I think
Well,
it's
you,
so
you have
clean.
no outside chemicals. It's
Right?
just your
Assuming your glass is pure.
use clear.
Use
and,
clear.
and we're talking about borosilicate specifically. We're not talking about leaded glass.
Yeah.
Big
glass.
Don't go
something to be aware of there.
Don't go melt down the crystal that you bought from TJ Maxx or whatever and smoke that. Shouldn't be drinking out of that, but the lead crystal in there.
That's why I
They
just go to
said
the
quartz,
e-nail.
man.
I just go to the e-nail. I'm not smart enough to do anything else.
Yeah. My problem with the e-nail, though, is since we're talking about that, though, is that it's using, you hope that it's using the Type 2 titanium metal to do that, but then
You'd assume.
you're hoping, right? That
Yeah,
wherever
but like I have a quartz nail, so it's on the outside of the quartz nail, so it's a heating element to the nail, so it's not inside where I'm burning anything.
No, your e-nail goes around a quartz nail?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
So
I thought it was all. I thought all the e-nails were the titanium nails.
No. I mean, they make them with the titanium, but like my e-nail, I have it's a quartz cup that sits on top of the coil.
Okay. I didn't realize that they were able to get that. I guess if it's shaking the molecules, making them mad and making them hot.
Yeah, so it's just a heating element at that point. It's still a quartz nail, and so you're burning it in the quartz. You're burning your concentrate, whether it's a wax or a shatter or whatever. You're still burning it inside that quartz nail. It's just on the
vaporizing
outside.
it, not
Vaporizing.
actually burning it.
Yeah, because there's no
vaporizing.
heating element like you're thinking. It's not working like a resistive.
It's not like turn on an oven.
No, that's a resistive. Well, no, that's different. But like those old heating coils in like the old bathroom heaters or whatever.
Yeah.
That's or like a light bulb, for example. That's a wire that has a certain amount of resistance to it. That when you pass current through it, it's heating up. That actual physical wire is heating up. This is something different. It's using frequencies. It's totally different for the e-nails because in order to heat a coil with something or of that nature, you would need a lot more power than those little e-nail controllers could provide.
Yeah.
Some of those are running off of like portable batteries too. I mean, you wouldn't be able to generate that kind of heat. Maybe if it were a thin
But I think with the
wire,
concentrates and stuff,
I guess
with the concentrates and the shatters and everything, to vaporize them, the lower the temperature is, so you're not burning something.
Yeah,
it's the cleaner, more pure.
Yes. Yeah. Let me take that back though, because I know with the new vape boxes and the vape pens, that's exactly what they're doing. They're using nichromium wire, which has a very low. What the hell is it now? It's a low resistance, so that or high. Anyway. They're using batteries, and they're using lithium-ion batteries, and those lithium-ion batteries are providing enough current to heat up the coil of wire that they're winding of nichromium wire, and then it's directly cooking off the product that's put in organic cotton.
That's the same wire that people that are doing like the
e-nails out of
the vape pens.
That's what I was talking about. That's what I'm talking
not
about.
the cannabis ones, the tobacco.
Oh yeah, no, that's what I'm talking about.
All that stuff.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, when you had yours, that's what I started looking into. I was like, what the hell is Glenn doing here? And Glenn got into making his own vape juice, and it was really cool. He'd buy he'd get a 100 milliliter graduated cylinder, right? And oil essence for flavor, and vegetable glycerin.
Yeah.
And the nicotine itself in this guy had a jar of like this paste nicotine stuff that had warnings all over it. You will die if you eat this. And he would measure out his own shit and make his own. What was the third ingredient though? Vegetable glycerin, nicotine, and I can never remember what that third one was.
Vegetable glycerin. I cannot remember. PG.
I don't know. Anyway, you can Google it if you
Crap.
think about it.
Wow, it's been a minute.
It's been a while.
So I haven't made this stuff in years now.
Yeah, but it was really cool when I saw him make it. I was like, so then you know exactly what's in the vape juice instead of that crap that you're buying off the store shelves. Which I mean, that whole vaping thing's a whole other story anyway. But nevertheless,
It's like
we digress.
It's like buying cereal. You don't really know what's in the cereal. It just tastes good, so you keep eating it.
Hey man, I like cereal.
You know what's in it?
No,
Exactly.
I don't want to know what's in it. So we're still on administration of drugs. We already talked about eating. Drinking is kind of a less common thing. I mean, I feel like
For THC?
Not too many people make weed teas. I mean, I definitely know.
I mean, you can buy drinks at like dispensaries and stuff like that, and I've had a couple of
are
them.
they
They're
juices or something?
No, they're like almost like a soda.
Really?
Yeah.
A lot of sugar
I've got
combined with them?
pretty sugary. Like I had a root beer one once.
Whoa. So, okay. And I guess you control your dose because it'll tell you how much THC is in per milliliter.
I think a 12-ounce root beer was, I think it was like 4 doses or something like that.
Oh, really? So you drink quarter of it, put it back in the fridge, and hang out. That's kind of cool.
Or share it with a couple people.
I'd never tried that. That's kind of cool. It's probably the same as eating it any other way, right? Except you're drinking it.
Yeah, pretty much.
So I guess if you found one that was like a Sprite, you could like mix it with some whiskey.
All right.
That would be gross.
Seagrams. So
Okay,
7
so
and 7.
There's something about the flavor when you mix THC with alcohol, and it just becomes like vomit inducing for me.
Really?
Oh, dude, it's
never tried it.
rough.
Wow.
I can do a shot.
So you're not going to eat like a
And then-
chocolate.
Hey, if I swallow one before I put the other one in my mouth, man, it's all good.
That's
but
what she said.
nice.
You nasty. Okay, let's talk about cost real quick because we are getting along in our time here and we still have a lot more to cover. I think this episode's going to go over here. It varies as widely as there are types. I mean, it's real hard to narrow down cost. I did my best in some research here to get some averages, but I'm sure these two will fill you in on what they have paid or do pay in the in our area. Again, it's geographical, it's market based, it's all it's country based, it's product quality based.
It also matters if you're smoking your own or OPs.
Yeah, or how bad your particular dispensary is ripping you off, or what. I mean, there's a whole million different variables, but here's some general numbers so you get an idea. And then it also varies too if you're buying edibles, if you're buying joints pre-rolled, if you're buying flour, if you're buying concentrates, if you're buying,
there's no limit to the amount of money you can spend.
That's
people.
true.
That's a good point.
That's true. And it's like a lot. Again, this goes along the lines of just like beer and wine, like we were talking about earlier. Grape juice is grape juice, man, and they will charge you whatever you are stupid enough to pay for it. Same thing with beer. We bought bottles of $25 beer. I have. I mean, it's just like, because I wanted to try, what the hell is a $25 bottle? Let me see this. It's usually they're barley wines that are, they're really good. They're very high, usually very high alcohol content.
Boutique.
It's boutique. That's where the world's going. Well, they're doing the same thing with weed. So let's go down a quick list I've got here. Specifically concentrates, because I didn't get any plant matter. Actually, do you guys know plant matter or flour? What things are going for grams?
It seems to be crazy.
It's
at
like
this
$20
point.
to $60 a gram,
bounced.
right?
Yeah, it depends on what the strain is,
the THC percentage.
the THC percentage, what dispensary you're at, or
Yeah.
if you're buying. Like for me, I kind of stopped buying stuff at dispensaries when weed went legal.
They started taxing us
'Cause
real
they
bad.
tax it so heavy. So you have a lot of events now, like in California, that are like smoke. They call it a smoke out. And so a lot of instead of going to a dispensary, a lot of these suppliers are selling through these other events. It's like a third-party event. But those you have to have a medical card to go to.
Oh, really? Still, even with recreational?
Absolutely.
I did not know
that's
that.
how they're controlling it.
Okay.
But you can go in there and you can still buy, an ounce for under $200 that's really good.
Okay.
You can't do that at a dispensary.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking an eighth for what, $60, $80 sometimes.
Yeah.
In a dispensary. It's crazy. Yeah. I was telling a story before, but I was in Palm Springs and I went into a dispensary and I think I bought like an eighth. And the taxes I paid two separate taxes. There was a California tax and then there was a cannabis tax. And the two taxes together were like almost 20%.
Yeah, I believe that. It's ridiculous.
That's it?
Yeah. 20%. Okay, so concentrates run roughly in these price ranges. For $20 to $35 a gram, you might get some keef hash or a very low THC wax. However, if that's what you're after, you could just purchase one of those grinders like Thomas was talking about, Space Case and Santa Cruz.
Sharp
is another one.
Too,
Those are three very good brands. I think I have a Santa Cruz, and I think Joe has a Space Case. Thomas has a Space Case. I don't know. Do you know what yours is?
I've had Sharps before. They're pretty good too.
Okay.
No, I'm not sure.
Anyway, so those are the good ones if you're interested in doing that. You could just get your own grinder, collect your own keef, and then you can get a press little smasher too and make your own hash pucks if you want. Some hash can be had around $30 a gram, but hash that is chemically extracted, that can go up to, sky's the limit or whatever they want to charge on that.
It's kind of funny. When I was younger and first getting into this scene, hash was a big thing, and now it's like, oh, it's just hash.
It's just, because it never was that big of a deal. Well, it was illegal, and concentrates hadn't started getting as big as they are now. So
right.
Now, nowadays, hashish is not it's not as rare as it used to be, I guess, right? And plus, you had to go through a lot of weed to get enough to make the little pucks, and that was what gave it some value too, right? Let's see. For wax, you'll again $30 a gram for the very entry level stuff. Depends on the wax. In the $40 to $55 per gram range, that gets you into your rosins, your shatters, your pull and snaps. Again, these would be your lower stuff, not your super high. But again, if you're just getting into it, that stuff is probably going to be enough for you. All the entry level, lower THC concentrations. 250 to 500 milligrams of cannabis oil is in that $40 to $55 range. Again, these are averages that, These particular ones came from actually Colorado. And the reason I chose them from Colorado was because Colorado was the first in our country to legalize. So I was kind of thinking if prices were going to stabilize to a lower supply and demand level anywhere, I kind of thought it might be there, if not California. But anyway, so take it for what it's worth. It's just an average for those that are curious and give them some sort of a baseline. In the $40 to $55 range, also 32 milliliters of a tincture is about what that'll get you. And that depends, of course, on the quality of the rosin and the quality of the tincture. Let's see, $45 a gram or around 40 to 45 is the average cost for a quality shatter. Pull and snaps, 30 to 50. A vape cartridge, everybody's seen the vape pens and the e-pens advertised everywhere. And most of those ones that you see advertisements for are for tobacco vaping products. There are ones they're basically the same design, but they're dedicated to smoking marijuana. And usually the ones that are dedicated to smoking marijuana come with replaceable cartridges that are filled with an oil concentrate already in them. So basically you buy this little, half pencil size looking unit that's the power pack. You charge it via USB and it produces the voltage and the current necessary to heat up the cartridge. You buy the cartridge separately. It's maybe, 2 inches long, something like that. It contains a liquid, which is the actual oil. You screw it onto the battery pack. You hit the button. It heats up your product. You take a hit. There you go. After a certain amount of time, you're going to run out of that oil. You're going to need to buy a new cartridge. I don't know that any of them are refillable, but I'm sure somebody makes a refillable one.
Some of them are, but what you're generally buying is a disposable, which is one of the things I don't like about it.
No. And
anything that adds more trash to this planet.
Right.
Yeah. And on top of that, the equally as bad as that, making more trash. My biggest concern is that the disposable ones probably contain or will contain more and more going forward plastic.
Yes.
And things that you are heating up and putting into your body
you
that
do
contain
not
plastic.
want to expose to plastic.
So I don't like the idea of disposable at all because of that reason. But that said, if you are not doing this very often, I don't know. You're probably drinking out of plastic water bottles and drinking sodas and drinking alcohol anyway, right?
Nope.
So if you're doing any of those things, you're already hurting yourself. So I was like, I don't know. If you're not going to be vaping out of these pens a lot, like daily or maybe even weekly, I don't know. Maybe I guess it's okay, but I don't.
It's a good travel companion.
Yeah, there you go. So I could see it for that reason. I don't know how long the product lasts in those things.
It depends on how much you smoke.
Well, if let's say you buy one and you set it down, how long till it goes bad?
Oh,
ever use it? Like how long?
I would probably say at least a year.
Really? That oil will last?
Yeah.
Holy crap! Okay, so there you go. So that's further to my point.
How's it gonna go bad?
I don't know. I don't know what it's
oil.
I don't know how perishable oil is.
Yeah.
I don't know because you can. How long can you leave olive oil on your counter for?
Forever if you don't wipe it off.
Clever.
This guy.
Okay, we're waking up now. An hour into the topic, Thomas is bringing the jokes. Okay, let's see here. Hashish oil will run you about $50 a gram. Tincture, again, sold in milliliters. 32 milliliters of tincture can run. What did I say the first time? 35 to 50, depending on potency and quality and whatever. The distillates and crystallines we were talking about. These are the ones that get up to the 99%. Those are crazy. Those are, again, an average that was pulled here, $100 to $200 per gram. That's a lot of money. However, you don't need a lot to feel a seriously, seriously strong effect. So I don't know. It's kind of like, it's not like alcohol, because alcohols, you could have a 100 proof, let's say a 100 proof alcohol that costs you, $20 a bottle for a bottle of Jack. Gentleman Jack, I think, is 90 proof, I think, if I remember correctly. Maybe it's single barrel. Anyway, it doesn't matter. If you go out and buy a $500 bottle of Patron Platinum, guess what? It's still 90 or 100 proof. I think it's 100 proof for Patron Platinum. You're still getting the same. Now, people will argue that the effects are different between whiskey and tequila. Okay, fine. You're still only getting 100 proof of alcohol. Or 50% alcohol.
50%, yeah.
Yeah, this is different. You buy a $100 gram of distillate or crystalline, you're getting probably 90% THC, a gram of that. And depending on your tolerancy to marijuana or THC, you might be able to just take the smallest little
This ain't grandma's weed.
mean, dude, like nothing off of that, and you'll be
Right.
stony baloney. I mean, so that
Yeah, the first time I ever did one of those pens, the vape pens.
knocked me on my ass.
I
dude.
was at one of the dispensaries, and it was, they were kind of pushing them, and I was like, oh, I'll give it a shot. And he was like, oh, you want to try it? And I'm like, sure, So I took a hit of it. I couldn't figure out if I was getting it hot or not because I was pushing the button, and trying to figure it. And I took probably the biggest hit I've ever taken from anything, and I just dry heave coughed for like the next 5 minutes.
Yep. Yeah, real easy to get a lot down with the vaporization in any fashion. You can that's why you have to be very, very careful and learn how to control the dose. This is why
Or just don't.
or just don't do it. Yeah,
No. I mean, don't control it. Just roll it.
This is what's really cool about dabbing because you use a little dab pick, if you will, or a little scooper. Some people have these titanium little scoopers that they'll use, and you can scoop just a little teeny tiny bit, or you can scoop the whole damn spoon. You can vary your own dosage, and that's good to control. However, with the pens or the vape pens, you're controlling. All you can control is the suction and how long you suck on it.
Yeah. That's what she said. but we should on the vape pens too. You also have the difference between the ones you push the button and that preheats it.
Yes,
versus
that,
the
you
ones
have to learn how that works.
Yeah,
too.
versus the ones you just inhale off of it, and the inhaling of pulling the pull that you have actually activates it. I like those a little bit better because the push button is like you can get it really hot and not notice that you're getting it really hot, and then you take a lot more abrupt hit, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, that covers costs as much as we're going to.
So how much money we got?
Yeah, a lot. Oh, the last one was...
They have a lot of money?
They were saying distillates can go up to around 120 gram, depending on how much. Remember, distillates are a little bit lesser potency than the crystalline, but still one of the highest that you can get. So yeah, that gives you some ideas of what you're going to be spending, basically a range of 20 all the way to 200, depending on what you're after and what equipment you have at home to smoke with it. Because remember...
That's a whole other cost.
Yeah, you have to keep in mind that these e-nails, these dab rigs, these quartz nails, these just your basic glass pipe, metal pipe, whatever you're using, all this stuff costs varying levels of money. And that we won't even talk about that. That's a whole that can go from.
And I think it's based more on user preference.
Absolutely,
about what you want to spend. But an average e-nail is going to cost you $100 to $200.
Okay, yeah, something like that.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, but that's just that. But see, that's you don't have that's not the bong. That's just the nail.
That's true.
So now you need a bong, another $100 at least on to 50
At
up to 50,000 if you're going to buy some piece of art.
Right.
So.
But you figure probably $100 to $200 on something decent, like a decent water bong that you're going to use as an e-nail, and the quartz nail. I mean, a good quartz nail is $100.
Yep.
What are Quave bangers going for now? 200 still, right?
Something around there.
Yeah, so it depends on, it's expensive, man. So that's why a lot of people just stick with joints or get themselves one little glass spoon or something, and that's what they use.
They've got a grinder and they just roll
and a
their
grinder,
own.
yeah.
Dude, I'm working with a new glass piece almost every day.
Well, it's because you're making your own.
Oh, wow.
It helps when you can make them. Okay, let's move on. Effects of the drug. Let's talk a little bit about this. Now, Glenn had already alluded to how we're going to kick this section off here. It varies a lot by the type and the strain, as well as how the product enters the body. So first, we'll talk about smoking. We'll get into edibles after that. Glenn mentioned already indicas and sativas, and then we had already mentioned hybrids, and another one we hadn't talked about yet was CBDs. Let's go over indicas real quick. I'm going to expand on what Glenn had already started here. Increased mental relaxation, muscle relaxation, decreased nausea, decreases acute pain, increases appetite, increases dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter that helps the brain's reward center and pleasure centers, and typically for nighttime use because it can make you sleepy. That's indicas. Sativas. Typically used for anti-anxiety, antidepressant, treats chronic pain, increases focus and creativity, increases serotonin, which is a neurotransmitter involved in the regulation of learning, mood, sleep, anxiety, and appetite, and for daytime use, typically. Now, within those is where you have all the funny names of strains that you've heard. Everybody's heard of Sour Diesel, Maui Wowie, Pineapple Express. All of those strains fall into either an indica sativa or hybrid. All of them, correct me if I'm wrong here, Glenn, all of them contain some level of CBD.
Yes.
Okay. So all marijuana contains THC, that's the psychoactive part of the drug, that's the psychoactive drug that makes us, that's our catnip.
Right.
And they all contain CBD. And CBD, I'm not even trying to remember what it stands for, so unfortunately I didn't write that down, but you can Google that if you'd like. CBD is an acronym. CBD is what made medicinal marijuana so popular, and what is often extracted and concentrated in order to make products, marijuana-related cannabinoid products that are geared just towards medicinal purposes.
Yeah,
Now,
you're removing the THC and just using the CBD.
yes, so you don't get loopy on highly concentrated CBD cannabinoids products.
Yes.
So
yeah,
whether
that's a huge definition there. CBD
know,
is
it's
not
tough.
something that you're going to get high on.
Yeah, no, and I mean you can get it. I wouldn't say. See, it's okay. It's probably a bad example, and the guys will correct me if it's too far in the wrong field. Kind of like painkillers, like pharmaceuticals. That's kind of, and that you'd use CBD, high CBD content products to replace your morphine or your Vicodins.
A painkiller.
A painkiller, yeah, any pharmaceutical painkiller. They can also be used for many other things. And again, we weren't going to get too much into the medical side of this stuff, but I have heard of them used for preventing chronic seizures and restless muscle twitches, pains,
restless leg syndrome,
yeah,
things
pains,
like that.
stuff like that. That we'll get into more of the medicinal benefits when we go further down here. But anyway, that's typically what the CBDs are used for. And when you do these, you can smoke them. You can tinctures under the tongue, droppers. There's probably even candies that are focused on CBDs, right? I mean,
I used to use the tinctures a lot with the CBD because I used to use them for my knees. It was one of the only things. I didn't want to take a bunch of aspirins and drugs because I'm always having pains with my knees. So I started replacing it with CBD. And what I would do is I would get a tincture, and I would get a small glass of water, like a shot glass, and I would experiment with I started off with 4 drops, then I'd try 6 drops, and then 2 drops, whatever, and see what it was. And it seemed like it's like you have to learn your body a little bit and learn to regulate what seems to work for you. But it seemed like for me there was no difference between 3 and 10 drops. What I mean? It didn't really seem like it was that big a difference.
no, because you can't feel anything other than if you have
and
pain.
that's the other thing that's amazing about CBD is I have knee pains every day, and so I would take the CBD, and like I said, I would put in a little shot glass with a little bit of water, like good water, not
I just put it under my tongue.
Yeah, well, you can do that too, but I just made a shot out of it, and I do that at night before I go to bed, and I do it in the morning before I go to work. And what's awesome about it is you don't feel anything, including
you don't get
pain.
high. You don't get high. It doesn't really matter how much you take.
You just feel good. Your body feels like it should feel.
Yeah, if it's a high percentage CBD, you just don't feel any pain or anything. Now, it doesn't work for everyone, just like aspirin doesn't work for everyone, or ibuprofen doesn't work
and
for everyone.
it's not going to make you numb like morphine does. It's just going to bring your awareness away from the aches and the pains, and it's going to fade to background noise. Don't expect this to be nothing hurts now. If you haven't tried it,
it's better than pharmaceutical. That's the thing. It's safer for you and healthier for you.
It's more natural.
It's more natural. Now, CBDs are very, very expensive. It is not like recreational marijuana. So you go that route, it costs a bit more because now they're selling you medicine, something you need, and they got you by the short and curlies because they know you need it because you're in pain or whatever your problem is. But nevertheless, it's good to it needs to be identified as a type that is out there. And then we didn't talk too much. Hybrids are, like I said, I think I said earlier, they are blends of indicas and sativas. You get a lot of different strains that are hybrids. And I mean, I don't know what a lot of people like hybrids, but there's probably more hybrids than there are the strong indicas and strong sativas, right? Because there's a lot of different ways to blend and a lot of strains to blend together when they grow new plants that are hybrids.
Yeah. The hybrids for me just seem like they're so strong, and I kind of get a little bit tired. It's just like with, like I said, I smoke sativas that's almost all I smoke because it doesn't make me tired. I enjoy the high.
Are you mostly sativas too, Glenn, you were saying?
Yeah.
Or you don't do hybrids?
I mean, I'll do a sativa dominant hybrid.
Okay.
But I won't do, if it's 50-50 or closer to indica, I will not touch it.
Yeah, the indica for me, I'm just I don't want to be a couch potato, and I think that's the sort of what it does for me when I smoke those.
Yeah.
Right.
Got it. Okay, let's move on. Talk a little bit about short-term side effects because that was the whole point of this section was effects of the drug. Short-term side effects, thankfully, for this drug are not that bad when compared
For
relatively.
CBD or marijuana?
Just THC, period.
Okay.
No, we're not. Yeah, CBD, we're not really going to focus on. At least I don't have any much more to talk about. If you want to bring something up, go for it. But decrease in short-term memory is probably one of the more funny or humorous side effects. Yeah, kind of forget what you were doing. And let's see, dry mouth, cotton mouth, what it's typically called. Yeah, for some
Increased
weird
appetite.
reason. Yeah, well, definitely impaired motor skills. But the dry mouth things, again, for some people who have never smoked before and don't know, that thing's freaking weird, dude. It's weird when your eyes feel like they're dry. Like, what the hell is wrong? And you're just like,
My eyes need a drink.
you will experience thirst, or you might experience thirst
Dude,
at
cotton mouth.
a level that you have never experienced before. It is really weird. However, all you got to do is get a drink of water or some liquid and you're fine. So it's not...
Just smoke more.
Do a couple shots.
You could do that. Yeah, well, I'll be careful with that because that's now you're getting into the crossfade and the cross multiplying there. And yeah, mixing drugs, yeah, that's a whole other topic. Red eyes, bloodshot eyes, that definitely doesn't hurt, but definitely they feel dry and they get bloodshot. However, most people who smoke will carry around eye drops or Visine or get the red out and you're good. Sometimes people will experience paranoia or anxiety. Again, a short-term effect. It'll wear off as soon as the high goes away, but it does suck if that happens to you.
Yeah, and I think that goes back into our conversation about like anything that you ingest, you need to learn what your body is okay with and not okay with, because it doesn't matter what your friends are doing or what somebody else is doing or what your peer pressure is. Your life is yours, and if you feel comfortable doing something, then you do something that's comfortable for you. If you don't feel comfortable doing something, you should never do it.
Yeah,
and that includes alcohol or marijuana or any of these things. Do what's comfortable for you and be careful and ease yourself into something. We've talked about this before on the program. In America, we restrict people from drinking until they're 21, and half the people I know who turn 21 turn into raging alcoholics, and they do all kinds of stupid things. Yeah. Well, that's I think that ideology is something that we and our generation are trying to remove from some of these items like alcohol and marijuana. If we look at them as just basic things that are just available for us as intelligent adults to use to relieve pain or to relax or just to have a good time with our people in a controlled environment, that's really what they're for. None of us are trying to allude to being an addict or getting all, cranked up on something for no reason. These are really safe things that we can use to enhance our day-to-day lives in a relaxed, recreational manner.
Yeah, and in fact, further to that point, too, that was one of the reasons we had thought of doing the Altered State series in general is kind of as an educational thing. If you've never done experimented with any of these drugs and you are curious about learning more, well, hell, we're trying to dump on you as much information as we know about it. And
we've got a lot of experience in this.
Yeah, you can make a more informed decision. And if nothing else, it's just if you have never had any interest and still don't, it's just nothing else. It's a little something interesting to think about. It's like, now I know about it.
Have you ever seen the video that's on YouTube where the grandmothers, there's like 3 grandmothers that never smoked weed and they smoke it?
Oh, there's one where they gave acid.
Oh, they did acid? Oh, it's even better.
But the weed
but they smoke weed and they're just laughing and having a good time and eating and talking about food.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is such a beautiful example of what marijuana can be for people.
That's the next thing I was going to say is heightened feelings and emotions. I have never seen anyone get depressed on marijuana. However, it is a well-recorded and documented side effect that can happen. Most people, like everybody I've ever smoked with, laughs at stupid things. Just you kind of like you become things are just more funny. I don't know. But that is, in definition, a heightened feeling or emotion state. So I guess if you're super depressed to begin with and you smoke, it could, same thing with alcohol, you could end up...
Well, alcohol is a depressant. Marijuana is not a depressant.
It's a central nervous system depressant, but that's
but not like alcohol.
Yeah, that's what I meant about alcohol. Is it?
Oh, yeah.
So, but because I most of the time, even if I'm unhappy, I get happier when I drink alcohol. But some
Me
people,
too, but a lot of people don't.
If they're depressed, they get worse, right?
Or they become mean.
Yeah, or mean, that's a whole other thing. Another side effect, sleepiness. Which is actually one of the desired effects sometimes, but sometimes you don't want to go to sleep, so you don't smoke. A lot of times smoking makes me sleepy, so I don't smoke it when I'm in a social setting because I don't feel like passing out. Duration, let's talk about that. Typically 2 to 6 hours, depending on the dosage when smoked. Edibles can last 8 to 12 hours. If you eat a lot, you can be high on an edible for a day and a half, as Thomas was talking about earlier.
Oh, man. So, the first time I ever made edibles, I did some cookies, right?
Like you cook them. You
I
made
cooked them. I made them.
Baked them.
I baked them. Yes. Grilled down the butter in
So I've never done that whole process.
Okay.
Neither
yeah.
have I.
So
I'm not much of a cook anyway. So
anyway, cook down the cannabis in the butter, which is the way you want to do it if you want to make some edibles. You simmer the butter on low heat. You really want to keep it from bubbling. You don't want to burn the butter. That's the biggest thing. Then you strain out the cannabis, then you use that butter in your recipe. And so I was baking cookies and then started snacking a little bit on the dough, just trying to like, oh wow, these are kind of good, right? And first batch came out, and of course I had to have one. Had two, and then so I'm cooking more batches and working through this. And by this time, now they're starting to come out of the oven. They smell really good, and I've got the munchies because I started snacking on the batter when I started doing this.
licking the bowl.
So I ended up eating like close to 10 of these damn things, and I made them strong.
I'm amazed you finished making them.
Dude, so anyway, once they were done, turned the oven off, I went and passed out, woke up stoned, was high that entire day,
Yep.
went to bed, woke up the next day, still high.
Yep.
Faded out by lunch.
Wow. So
Yeah,
it's
it
like
is-
48 hours.
Oh,
of being
dude,
high.
it was
It
was
nuts.
crazy.
It can be nuts for sure. So you have to be careful with the edibles. Very, start small for sure and
Yeah,
give it
definitely
time.
start small. Be very controlled.
Yep.
didn't know what I was getting myself into at that point.
Yeah, tolerancy level also, can definitely affect duration. Some people are just naturally more tolerant. Some people who smoke a lot are obviously have a higher tolerancy. Until like Thomas had already said, until you know your body, don't learn it first and start off small. Ways to deal with the effects while under the influence. Well, there really isn't too much you can do. You just kind of have to wait it out. You can sleep it off, which is nice because there are quite a few psychedelic drugs that you can't just sleep off.
Right.
So this is one of the for you. This
I
is
can't
one of
just
the,
lay down and make this go away.
no, this is one of the nice ones that you actually can sleep it off. But if you don't want to, this is why there was a whole culture and era of music and weed. Go find yourself on Spotify or whatever you use for music, some Pink Floyd, throw some headphones on, lay down on your floor, and just chill.
Some STS9.
They're hell yeah. Get yourself off, get your mind off of whatever is giving you anxiety or paranoia. Relax, close your eyes, you'll be fine. That's about the worst of it. And there really, like I said, there really is no way to get.
I mean, I've had friends that
off.
have some slight anxiety attacks, but they had anxiety before.
Yeah, it's stuff you carry in with you,
Yeah.
kind of like most psychedelics. But
Yeah.
this, yeah,
And I think that's going back to like learning yourself. If you know that you have some of these issues, don't amplify them. Like if you know you're mean when you drink, don't
freaking
start
drink.
doing.
Do us all a favor.
Yeah, do us all a favor. Don't start drinking tequila at noon.
Just don't drink.
So just sort of learn those things. But it's if you have any of those sort of symptoms or something, either that's learning your body. Either don't do it or decide that you want to half it down or whatever. But the edibles, I think people need to be really careful with the edibles because even if you're an experienced smoker, sometimes the edibles can come back to bite you.
Hell yeah.
I've had a couple
I'd
experiences.
say it
with
has nothing to
edibles.
do with if you're an experienced smoker or not, because I didn't look this up, but isn't eating THC a different reaction completely,
Oh, completely
in the
yeah.
body? So
the way it
not the
digests,
same
the way it
thing.
works through your body is completely different.
Yeah,
it's
it's
just
not the
like
same
drinking
thing.
water. If you drink water straight versus drinking water with a little bit of tea in it or something, your body processes the water differently. So your body processes everything differently. So like with the edibles, most edibles are in chocolate. So your body processes that differently because it's with another substance. It's with the chocolate versus having it straight. It's just the way your body reacts. So until you know how your body reacts with that, you got to be careful. This is what I was talking before about that peanut butter stuff we were eating. We're like, oh, we're not eating, and we don't feel anything for 10 or 15 minutes. And looking down, we've eaten half the jar. We were high for the next 15 hours. And I couldn't sleep, and I was bouncing around. So you got to learn those things. And I've told you guys before about the experience I had when I was driving to San Francisco, and I had a little edible with me. And it was like 4 servings, and it was melting because it was in a car and it was hot. And so instead of letting it melt, I decided to go ahead and eat the rest of it. That was the worst thing I'd probably done in years. I was paranoid and I had a lot of issues, but I know
trying to drive in San Francisco.
Yeah, well, I was lost. I couldn't figure out where I was at. I couldn't read a map. I couldn't figure anything out. I couldn't solve any sort of problems. So I know that I was high as a bat's ass, So I know that. So I learned that about myself, and you learn those balances. So you deal with them. I shouldn't have. I was in a car. I was safe. Somebody else was driving, but I was like,
oh, I thought you were driving.
No, I was in the car.
I was just say, how the hell did you do that?
Yeah, and so I'm like, freaking out. But I learned from that experience. Here's my limit. Back it off. Contain things a little bit, and that goes back to what I was saying before about like learn yourself. And with edibles, know thyself. I think with edibles, a lot of people say 45 minutes. I say an hour to hour and 15 minutes.
Really, it is more like an hour plus because I've waited 45 minutes before sometimes, and certain things that I've eaten didn't take hold, but it took an hour to an hour and a half sometimes.
Yep. Yeah, I feel like that hour to hour and 15 minutes. If you're an hour and 15 minutes into it, and that you're gonna know yes or no. Yeah, and it also bases on did you have anything to eat before? Did you eat on an empty stomach?
Your digestive system. Have you been moving around or just laying flat and not moving?
Yeah, all of these things contribute.
Yep,
everything. Just like alcohol.
So those are some short-term effects. Let's talk about the bad side effects. Every drug's got them, and I got a list here that I put together for this particular one. The good thing, their toxicity is the first one I want to bring up. There is no toxicity level to death for marijuana. So had never been a case of somebody who overdosed to the point where they died on marijuana. So you're safe. You're not going to die.
There are individuals that are allergic to it.
I'll get to that.
That's something to be aware of about yourself. If you're having a bad reaction to it, know your body. Pay attention.
So regarding the allergy, since Glenn brought it up, we'll just talk about it now. The thing that we're smoking there is a plant. It's a flower. That's why we keep calling it a flower. It has pollen. It is a plant. If you can be allergic to any other plant, you can certainly be allergic to this plant. So there are people out there who are allergic. I haven't read of anything where somebody was like super hospitalized, like EpiPen allergic to it, but it doesn't matter. You could start an itchy throat. You could have a rash. I was reading about all kinds of stuff. Any normal allergic reactions you could potentially have to weed if you happen to suffer from that. Now, that does not mean, like with alcohol, people who are allergic to alcohol can be allergic to alcohol too. That does not mean that you are allergic to all forms of THC or alcohol. Certain alcohols, forget the alcohol thing, certain marijuana or certain cannabinoids are different. Certain ways of smoking are different. You might be able to eat it, but you can't smoke it. Or you might be able to only vaporize it, no problem, but you can't grab a nug and hold it in your hand of the flower.
Yeah. If you have asthma, I wouldn't suggest smoking.
Yeah. That's not an allergic reaction.
Well, I know, but I mean, but it goes back into a medical condition that you're dealing with.
Yep.
There's lots of people that I know that have breathing difficulties that do edibles. I love the fact that there's an edible option there because they don't smoke. They don't want to smoke and have more asthma problems, asthmatic issues.
Yep, or hurt their lungs further. Now, that is not saying there are synthetic variants of marijuana, and those are bad. Those have killed people. So this is the pure stuff, es puro, man. So the actual grown organic plant is a whole different story. Don't mess around with anything synthetic. That's my advice. I didn't read anything good about that stuff, and I've never. I don't know. Have you guys ever messed with any of the K2 or the?
Nope.
I've not at all, and I've had friends whose kids bought synthetic stuff because for a while you could buy it at
they took it away,
gas stations.
I think the Obama administration made it illegal. With bath salts. That did the two things.
But back in that era, I had a friend who had a high school age kid, and they were buying synthetic at a gas station, and it caused all kinds of problems.
Like sativa?
Oh, he was having all kinds of problems. Stay with the clean, pure things.
Sativa? That's not a synthetic.
Not satava. But no, what the hell
Salvia.
is it? Salvia.
Salvia is a type of sage. It's not a synthetic
No.
cannabis.
I know. No, the reason I brought that up is because you used to be able to buy it in like little head shops and gas stations and whatever. Salvia. God, that's stupid. Anyway, let's see.
Don't smoke that.
No.
It's an interesting
that stuff's
experience.
Weird. Yeah, that's a whole different story, though. That's like Glenn said, that's a sage. That's a whole different beast. We'll probably do an episode on that at some point, but yeah. Let's see. Let's talk about addiction and physical dependency. Marijuana can be mentally addictive.
Absolutely.
But there are no physical dependencies. You won't go through withdrawals or your body doesn't build itself around needing that substance on a regular basis. Now, your mind can. That's a whole different story. There's a lot of psychological reasons why people get addicted to marijuana and the effects that and living in that state of mind. That altered state. Another bad side effect: decreased mental ability. So if you start smoking it at early teenagers, this is actually something recent that they've discovered, and hopefully it's true and not just propaganda. They say that they have proof that that when young teenagers or teenagers in general, I can't remember, I think it was like 12 to 13 or 12 or 13 to like 17, I think is what the range was. If they start smoking young at those ages, it can lead to decreased mental ability as they continue growing, because it affects the developmental stage that their body is in at that point. You can read more into that if you're curious or have teenagers, but that's what I've read. I started smoking when I was 13, and but I never did it a lot, but definitely, was present all of my life since 13. I don't really know that I suffered greatly
Late bloomer,
from it, but yeah. And I was never that big into it anyway, but nevertheless. Anyway, let's see. Behavioral problem. Oh, yes. They have discovered that mothers who smoke while pregnant, there is a correlation with behavioral problems in the children after they are born. So
Truly.
there's that.
Huh.
That's what I found.
Does it talk much about the behavioral issues?
Yeah, like ADHD stuff, and
Okay.
I can't remember what the other ones that they had
Well,
listed
I mean,
were.
I think most people, especially people who are, really into like, I guess it's sort of the weed snob type people, are more into natural and holistic sort of things. And to me, I would think that if you're pregnant at all, you would want to do things that would increase the natural health of things and more pure health, good foods and good, beverages. Waters and things like that. I wouldn't suggest or want to do anything like that. If I don't feel good or I'm sick or something, I don't do any. I don't smoke or drink or anything like that. It's a time to recover, a time to be, clean and get your body, up to being healthy again.
Yeah,
And I think that's the way a lot. And most people I know that smoke feel exactly the same way.
I suppose. Okay, so you had mentioned being pregnant in that sentence there. I suppose that if you are pregnant, you'd have to ask yourself, okay, even if you believe that smoking marijuana while you're pregnant won't hurt the baby, maybe that's not the right question. What good will it do for the baby? Because everything you put into your body affects the child. So if there's no good that it's actually doing, like clinically proven good, don't do it.
Yeah, and I have several friends who are definite, big weed smokers that when they were pregnant, they didn't smoke at all.
Yeah. That's a nice thing is you can quit cold turkey because it's not addictive. You just need to control your mental craving to...
I can't handle it, man.
I need to be so high. Let's see. Where was I now? Oh, yeah. Okay, so if you're smoking, if you're administering it via smoking, all of the... Well, maybe not all of them, but a lot of the same bad side effects of smoking in general are there as a bad side effect. Coughing, it's bad for your lungs. If you have respiratory issues, it can definitely inflame them. It can cause respiratory issues. That's more so if you're smoking flower. If you're vaporizing, it's probably a lot better. It's less carbon going in your lungs and other chemicals from the papers that you might be
less
rolling.
tar.
Butane, stuff of that nature. So there's that. So some people, if you're like, I think Thomas had already mentioned, if you have lung issues or respiratory problems, you probably should stick with tinctures or edibles or some edible of some sort.
Yeah, figure out something that works. Again, learning your body and figure out what's best for you. If you like the feeling of a high, like a sativa high or something, and you have some breathing difficulties, you have options. You have edible options.
Yep. Or candies too. I mean,
Right.
There's lots of different ways to do the edibles. Impaired judgment. Well, yeah, you're stoned. You're probably going to not make the best decisions. So,
Well, you mean I shouldn't go operate heavy equipment when I'm...
yeah, exactly. Oh, delayed reactions. That's another one. Yes.
Shouldn't
yes, Glenn.
skydive.
You should not go operate the tractor while you are, or mow the lawn.
Damn it.
On the riding lawnmower while you are.
Definitely don't play with a chainsaw.
Yes. No chainsaws.
But it goes vroom.
I had already mentioned earlier, this last one can increase depression. Yes, if you already suffer from depression, it might not be the best option for you. Okay, so all of those bad side effects, why the hell do people use it? Well, we've already discussed a lot of these things already, but we'll go through the list real quick just in case we missed something that was worth mentioning or going further into. Medicinal benefits is the first and most obvious for this particular drug, and that range of reliefs, I suppose you could say, ranges from pain relief, sleep aid, regaining appetite, weight gain. Actually, some people have have a lot of trouble eating in general, or gaining weight when retaining what they do eat. So, can actually help you gain weight. Dealing with nausea or vomiting, reduce inflammation. And we mentioned a lot already about the CBDs, about CBD and high strains with high CBD percentages or concentrations can be very helpful for the brain and or body, or have relaxing effects on both of those. A lot of people, like Thomas had just said a few minutes ago, have a smoke at the end of the day for relaxation purposes. I mean, that's how you end your day instead of going for the shot of bourbon or whatever, a couple fingers of bourbon, go for the bowl. It's actually better for you. Recreational, of course. I mean, especially our generation grew up off of getting high and playing video games. I mean, and some of them never recovered. They're still doing.
What are you trying to say, man?
They're still on that wagon. There is another reason to use it. There is a sense for some people. There is a extrovertedness that comes from it. Some people actually get an increased social openness from marijuana. Kind of like alcohol can be a social lubricant.
Right.
I've not found this for myself. I typically get quieter and under the influence of marijuana. But some people I have seen really do open up a little more because they get relaxed. Their anxiety, if they have social anxieties, that's the one I've seen the most. We've had a couple of buddies that got some social anxiety. They take a couple hits and they go out and they're fine after that. You wouldn't even know they were high. They're just, wow, you're like a normal person now. Well, that's what it took. Spiritual uses. There are it carries a sacred status in several religions. It is used as I'm gonna try and pronounce this word, entheogen, which is a class of psychoactive substances that induce a type of spiritual experience aimed at development or sacred use. So there's a lot of drugs that fall into that, peyote, mescaline, psilocybin. I'm sure there's somebody or another trying to promote acid, build a religion around acid.
Right.
If that wasn't the hippie.
I'm on it.
Yeah, right. If that wasn't the 60s. Let's see. Oh, man. Yeah, and it can be considered a party drug. That's kind of ties into the recreational aspect I mentioned earlier. Heightened emotional responses to many stimuli. Getting high and listening to music is a great American pastime.
Awesome.
It is amazing, and it is entirely enjoyable. Being that it is a psychoactive drug, there can be, especially depending on your dosage, a certain level of heightened color perception. And if you take too much, you can actually get mild visual hallucinations off of high doses for your tolerancy levels of THC. But yeah, music and cartoons, sometimes movies. It can be, for me personally, it can be difficult to get things to follow along things. If I'm too stoned, I don't know what the hell I'm staring at.
You don't want to watch a documentary.
No, I can't
watch Rick and Morty.
Exactly. I want to watch Rick and Morty. Yes, so there you go. Get high, listen to Pink Floyd, then get high again the next day, watch Rick and Morty, and then keep expanding on.
And there goes your weekend of pot.
Rinse and repeat. And if you don't like either of those, well, maybe this isn't the drug for you. Yes. Unfortunately, the heightened emotional response can also feed that depression thing we were talking about too. So you got to be careful with that because it is potentially capable of increasing your emotional or receptiveness or perception of sadness and depression and stuff like that. So anyway, that's where that side effect can come from. So both a double-sided blade there, both a good.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to just kind of learning yourself. If you already have depression issues, you shouldn't be drinking. Mm-hmm. So I mean, you kind of figure out things that work for you a little bit.
Yep, like I said, maybe this isn't your drug. Maybe it's not your cup of tea, your bowl to smoke. Let's talk a little bit about the view or stigma from society. The view on this one is definitely changing all over the country, probably over the world as more and more countries legalize it. And with legalization, it's still taboo, I think, but I mean, you can almost watch it in people's faces. For certain people, how their perception of it has changed. It's kind of funny. You realize how many. Well, I was speaking for myself. It kind of made me. It further drove home the realization of how many sheeple there really are in this place. Because you can watch these people who their government says this is bad for you. This is the same as heroin. You will die. Your kids will go crazy. And then all of a sudden they're, oh, I can't touch this stuff. Oh, it's so terrible. And then the next day, oh, no, it's legal. And then they're, oh, I've been thinking about trying weed for my back. What the fuck?
As long as somebody as long as their authority figure tells them it's
Think
good
for
or
yourself.
bad.
What the hell is wrong with you?
Yeah, and it's just a conversation we've had before about a lot of older people use the word dope.
Dope.
It's just all dope. It's just dope. Heroin, cocaine, weed is all dope. You damn dopers.
They have nothing to do with one another, and they never did. But it's been interesting to watch that change with legalization and people's opinions and ideas and understandings. And
I think we just as part of our information era that we're going through, where people are, for a long time, we've had governments that have told us certain things and said, well, this is good, this is bad, regardless of any other information or any outside sources.
Well, we had no other source of information.
That's what I'm saying. We didn't have the opportunity. I think with the internet and just information in general, we're starting to be a little bit more educated society about different things. We know more about alcohol. We know more about marijuana. We know more about lead. We know about plastics. We know about all these different things, whereas before there was a lot smaller resources of information, and it was very heavily guarded by a government. Yep. And as we've talked before, government is only going to give you information based on what they want you to do with that information.
That benefits them.
What benefits them. And so I think the stigma now is that a lot more people are like, especially, like I would say like my mom's generation. My mom was a hippie in the 60s, in Southern California. She didn't actually smoke weed. She's never really smoked weed much in her life at all. She doesn't drink. She doesn't do any of those things. But she has no negative response to them. She doesn't look at somebody who wants to smoke weed and go, oh, you're a doper. Yeah. Whereas my dad, who's 83, feels that way. My mom's in her 70s, and she's like, oh, it's not a big deal. I experienced it when I was a kid. It's not a big deal. So we're having a changing of the guard as far as our general view of a lot of things based on people going, well, I tried that. It wasn't really a big deal. Whereas before, I felt like there was a giant generation of people who never tried it, had no exposure to it,
and just listened to the government.
Yeah, they just listened to the government. They had no reality to base their decision on, other than the fact that they believed somebody who was telling them what they wanted them to think. Yeah. Those walls, I think, are starting to disappear pretty heavy.
Thankfully. And so to this effect, because I've always found the irony of this kind of humorous, the anti-drug campaign really pushed marijuana as the gateway drug, right?
Right. And to find one of them.
Yeah. Okay. So they pushed marijuana as the gateway drug because it was so prevalent, and they could not really control it, and that was part of the problem. Let's scare the people, put the fear into the people, right? Tell them it's a gateway drug, it's going to lead to you smoking crack, and your kid's brain is a fried egg in a pan, and whatever, right? They couldn't have been more incorrect, because there's plenty of people who have only smoked weed and never done anything else, drank alcohol and smoked weed, never done anything else. There's tons of examples of that. It doesn't necessarily mean if you do that, you'll end up doing heroin, okay? That said, in the end, I think they were actually right. The marijuana ended up being a gateway drug in the sense of legalization of drugs, of illicit drugs. Since marijuana has become legalized, medicinally and then recreationally, and as it is spreading across the country becoming legalized, people are starting to question, including important people and medical people and scientific people, a lot of the other drugs that are out there, and asking why in the hell aren't we testing some of these drugs for medicinal benefits? And then the population is asking, why in the hell isn't this legal? These other drugs legal, which they're obviously not killing people, and they are not as unsafe as you have made it out to be. Case in point, the amount of MDMA that has been being used for PTSD research, is huge. The amount of MDMA that's being used for relationship counseling and sexual counseling is huge. Psilocybin has become legalized as it can at a city level in, was it Denver?
Denver.
Denver, Colorado. They because they're just a city, they couldn't override the state law or the federal law. So what they did instead is they said in the city of Denver, they passed it. If you get caught with psilocybin, which is mushrooms, if you get caught under the influence or possession, the police are required, or the police enforce the lowest penalty that they can enforce as a penalty. That was how they handled it. So they couldn't say they couldn't do nothing, but they can write a warning and give you a warning. And that's
Because
it.
in California, psilocybin is totally illegal.
Oh yeah, it's not. I don't know if it's Schedule 1, but it's bad. You're getting arrested.
Yeah, you're going to
in trouble.
you'll get arrested quicker in California for psilocybin than weed.
Well,
for sure.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it's
Well, now weed's legal, but
Well,
nevertheless.
yeah, but I mean, back in the, even beforehand, yeah.
Yeah. But so my point is that yes, marijuana ended up being a gateway drug. It ended up being a gateway drug against the government control. It ended up being a gateway drug, opening the doors for the legalization of and awareness of the benefits of all other drugs.
It opened up the conversation to, well, let's explore this more. And that's the one thing I always thought was crazy. And I think until the federal level of a Schedule 1 is removed from marijuana,
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest dilemma we have for a federal passing of it being
Yes.
legal. But also, that also restricts, when you have something listed under like a Schedule 1, it restricts the research
Yes.
that's available. And I think
Now-
that's the most horrible thing, because all of these drugs, no matter what they were, we have pharmaceutical companies that are just throwing anything they can together to invent a drug and then trying it out on people.
Yeah.
We've got all these natural things that we don't really understand. If we can study these, no matter what they are, whether they're synthetic or natural or whatever, I think that we should be able, in our science community, to be able to study these to find out what they really do. I mean, just because something gets somebody high doesn't mean that you can't break it up into other pieces and pull out, just like CBD is, and pull out something that's super beneficial to, say, a cancer patient or someone with seizures or all these other things. But because we restrict them through these laws, that we're not able to research these more. And I think that's one of the things that the general public is starting to really see and really reach out about, is say, look, we want to understand this more and understand if there's benefits for this, because we need answers to certain things. We need cures for certain things, and we have nowhere else to go. These are already here. Let's see what they have to benefit or not.
Yeah, and to add to that, there's, for example, there's already a version of LSD that has no psychoactive properties, meaning you don't hallucinate, you don't get high, you don't, have a crazy trip off of it, and it is used specifically for people with extremely crazy migraines. So that's one great example, and of when they open up the doors and allow testing, what can be accomplished with. Discovering the benefits, medicinal benefits, and scientific benefits of these drugs that have been taken away from us for so long. So anyway, that's expanding every day, and thankfully so. And that's the gateway drug that marijuana truly ended up becoming, which is awesome. As far as going back to the view from society, as far as society views it, marijuana these days, where it's legal medicinally or recreationally, it's available everywhere. I mean, there's dispensaries all over the place. And that is also helping to change the view in society. And then one last note there, you do have to be 21, right, to purchase. Okay, so they're running it like alcohol. And that has some effect on the way society thinks about stuff too, because at some point people will be raising their children like, oh no, you can't touch that. You can't have a beer until you're 21. Well, you can't smoke marijuana until you're 21. Whereas not just a couple years ago was you can never smoke marijuana. That's it's a bad drug. Like, no, actually they can go out and buy their joint and smoke it when they turn 21. They can buy their firearm, they can buy their booze, they can buy their weed.
Right.
And
But vote first.
But you can vote or die with the military for first, though. But yeah, there you go.
Yeah, he's only got to be 18.
That's a whole other topic. Yeah. Okay, we have gone way far over on this topic. However, I wanted us to end it with one last little thing here. We're going to talk a little bit, if everybody can think of something, a couple of personal experience they have with this particular drug. I liked this aspect of the alcohol one. I think we're going to continue it with the other drugs that we cover going forward. But it adds it's an opportunity for us to tell a good or bad from our own experience. So we are going to go around and each answer why do we use it, this particular drug, and if we can think of one, a good or bad story while under the influence. So. Who wants to go first? Thomas? Glenn? Thomas
say
wants to go
Glenn.
first.
I say
Glenn wants to go
Wait,
first.
I do?
You do.
Oh, okay. So,
Just something real quick because we're already at an hour and 50 minutes now. But go for it. You got plenty of time.
man,
So why do you use it?
why do I use it?
Yeah. Name 9 reasons.
I find it relaxing when I'm doing art or working or cleaning or going about some task, and I just kind of want to get into the zone and get about it. It's great because it kind of allows you, I don't know, allows me to focus on what I'm doing and kind of get lost in the process, and I enjoy that. That's
Got any good stories, good or bad?
oof.
Now, you already told one about the cookies.
About the cookies.
You got another one? You want to tell what happened in Portland with the Rice Krispie treat?
Oh my goodness! Oh, that was awesome.
This is recent. This was only like, I don't know, a couple months ago, right?
Yeah.
Something like a month ago, something like that.
So I go to a glass blowing event every year up
And I go with
up in
him.
Portland. Yep. And at this event, they had some vendors with some cannabis products.
Yeah.
And
It was really cool.
this person had these Rice Krispie treats that they made, and they were
amazing.
freaking strong.
They were amazing. They tasted amazing.
The most delicious Rice Krispie treat I've ever had
What
in
was
my
it?
life.
Freaking strawberry?
Yeah,
and
it was like a strawberry Rice Krispie treat.
amazing.
Wow.
But yeah, so I got 2 of these, and the first day I split one with one of the guys that went with us, and then that just kicked my ass. And then the next day we split it between like how many people?
4 of us. I think all 4 of us.
Yeah, so split it 4 ways, and then man, so I got home after this, and by the way, I was useless.
Yeah, oh man, dude!
Yeah,
I thought I was
I-
gonna have to go find him a chair and like, dude, you need to sit this one out, buddy. We're walking around. I thought he was gonna fall over. I don't think I've ever seen him that high before.
Oh, it was special.
Yeah, but in that venue, I mean, people are you're totally cool there. That like it's a normal thing here there at that event.
Right. So yeah, no, that
was great.
That was
That was great.
tasty.
Is that where you going?
Tasty snacks.
Yeah.
Oh, so
It's still affecting him.
It is. It totally is. Actually, true story. So it affects your tolerance level, and when you're exposed to large doses. And after that, I got home and tried to do a dab, and didn't feel anything from this concentrate. That's usually like enough to kind of
Take care of things.
right. And so I'm still trying to wean myself off and let that bring down. And
Yep.
anyway.
Wow.
Got it. All right, Thomas, you want to go next?
What's the question?
What's the And no, we're actually not smoking for this episode. So, why do you use it?
A lot. So I use it for a variation of reasons. One thing is I do have a lot of weird pains. I have scoliosis. I have really bad knees. So smoking for me kind of relaxes my body a little bit, and it takes out a lot of the pain in general. That's why I was a big fan of the CBD stuff, because I was looking for an alternative for pain medications, and CBD became a very reliable one for me. But the smoking for me also, we talked about the sativa versus indicas and things like that. Working in art, one of the things that sometimes I have these like weird blocks where I feel like I'm not very creative or something, and I don't want to do anything ridiculous, but I just kind of want to like jar my brain a little bit to get things moving. And a good sativa, especially if it's like a dab or something, will definitely like send my brain into like a little bit of an overworked creative mode. And when I do something like that, I usually have paper around me so I can write notes down, so I can remember things. But it opens my mind up to just like really explore a thought or creativity in a way that I don't normally do in a average, everyday setting. And again, it's a controlled situation. I'm, planning on camping out in the studio or whatever, and I just want to think about some things or bring some new ideas to the plate or something like that. So it's a combination of kind of like being creative and also like making my body feel a little bit better in general ways. That's the main reasons I use it.
All right. And do you have a good or bad story to
Well, I
share
think
with the
I
classroom?
think the best story I have to go back into is the edible thing, and kind of get this.
It's always edibles, dude.
It's the edibles thing.
My story's with an edible
Oh
too.
my god! And I've never done it. I've never smoked weed like flower or something. Had any of these issues ever? It's always been.
I've dabbed and had crazy stuff
Well,
happen.
I've dabbed
but-
before and just been like really ditzy and passed out. But But the edibles you've really got to be careful with, because like I said, I was going to San Francisco one time and I was trying to find a place that we were going to go to, and I ate way more of the edible than I should have. I started panicking. I couldn't figure out where I was at. I couldn't read. I couldn't look at my phone and figure anything out. I couldn't figure out the map. I got into this panic mode where I couldn't figure out what to do. And it didn't last like 30 or 40 minutes. It lasted like 8 hours. It was almost like being on acid. And I finally had to convince everybody we were with to just go to the beach, so I could just go to the beach and sit down and relax, because I couldn't put anything together. I couldn't plan anything. I was being the navigator in the car with the map, and I just kept making us go around in circles because I couldn't figure out how to get out of the neighborhood we were at. I had total loss of control, perception. Like, I just couldn't put anything together. I couldn't do math. I couldn't read. I was completely freaking useless. So that was probably one of the worst. I've had some other experiences like that on too, but they've all been because of edibles.
Yeah.
Every single one of those.
Yeah, that's why we stress so much the importance of being careful with edibles, because that's the one that'll kill you.
I always equate them to shots. I've had girlfriends that are like,
absolutely.
Yeah, I've had girlfriends who go out drinking and you're like, oh, let's do a couple of shots. And they take 2 or 3 shots, and like 15 minutes later, I don't feel anything. I want to do 4 more.
Yes.
And you're like, no, I'm not going to do 4 more. Yeah. You're more than welcome to.
Yeah, well.
And then 2 hours later, I'm carrying this girl back to the car.
Saying, or I'm holding hair.
Yeah, so she can
not
puke.
in a good way.
Yeah, puke in the alley outside the bar.
Yeah, exactly. That's the worst. So why do I do it? I had mentioned already music. I'm really, really into music, and it definitely heightens my enjoyment and experience when listening to it. And there's actually a visualization. If you get bored, Google Winamp and look for the milk drop, one word, milk drop visualization. And turn that shit on when you're listening to your MP3s, or look for a standalone version, let you do it off Spotify or whatever. Get high, listen to your music, and watch that damn thing. And
it's pretty awesome.
There you go. That's how I roll. So that's one reason. Another one is I have a lot, as a lot of people do, a little bit of trouble shutting the brain off at the end of the day. And I have found, while it is not actually good as a sleep aid because it prevents REM sleep, I have found that smoking weed, specifically indicas, helps me get to sleep. It definitely knocks me out, but if I smoke too much, I'll end up waking up later, just like alcohol. If I get really drunk and go to sleep, I'll end up waking up in the middle of the night and not being able to go back to sleep, because those 2 drugs actually prevent REM sleep. So they're not really actually that great as a sleep aid. But nevertheless, sometimes I'll use it anyway because I can't even get sleepy in the first place. So rather than insomnia, I'll take that option. And occasionally I do find it relaxing, so it'll just kind of just chill out if I feel like I'm not going to do anything for the rest of the day, or I've been working, in the garage or something a lot, and I'm tired, and what the hell, I'm laying it out. Same reason I drink for the most part.
Right.
I also find that alcohol enhances my music enjoyment as well, and social reasons too. But yeah, I'm not generally not really a creative person in the traditional aspect and the artistic aspect at all. So I don't have that outlet. So I know for a lot of people, I hear it definitely helps your creative outlet. Well, I don't do anything artistic, so I can't really benefit from that attribute of it. As far as the story goes, yeah, the best thing I've got is when I was definitely with an edible. I don't even remember what the hell it was at this point because it was that bad. I think it was a chocolate. I do tend to like the chocolates if I'm getting edibles because it hides the flavor usually pretty well, depending on the chocolate. So it was I don't know, maybe 5 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 o'clock, something like that. And I had just taken an edible, and I get a call from this girl that I really liked. This was quite a few years ago. And she's with a couple of her friends, and both of which were really hot. And one of her friend's boyfriends was really cool. It's people I wanted to hang out with, basically. And she's like, "Oh, we just got to the movie theater. We're heading to the movie theater right now. We're going to catch a showing. And oh, what time is it? Okay." And she calls me right on the damn cusp of this edible kicking in, right? And I'm just to the point where I'm thinking, shit, can I make it there before I get super stoned? Can I get myself there before it's too late? And I tell her, she was not a smoker or anything of the nature, but she was
already kind of bad.
Yeah, she wasn't against it or anything. She just didn't understand what I was coming for. I was coming from, right? I was like, I just ate an edible and I don't know if I should go, but I really want to hang out with you. It was one situation like that. So we kind of talk back and forth, wasting time, trying to decide if I'm, meanwhile, this shit's kicking in. Meanwhile, I'm trying to, decide whether or not I should do this, right? And finally I say, fuck it. I think it was actually more of the effect of the drug that made me say fuck it. So I head outside, and my brother is actually, at the time, was living with me, and he's downstairs watching TV on the couch. I don't remember what he was doing. I think he was just watching a movie or some shit, playing video games maybe. And I tell him, oh, man, I'm heading out, dude. And I was down here talking to him when I ate the edible, so he had already known that I had eaten the edible, right? And I head out the garage door, and I say, oh, I'll see you later, dude. And he's all, you're cool to drive, right? I was like, yeah, I feel fine, whatever. I'm great. So I head out the door, start the car, open the garage door, or maybe open the garage door first, whichever. Start to roll the car back. The minute something triggered, I don't know what triggered it, but it hit me all at once. The minute the garage door opened and I had the car pulled out all the way into the driveway, it must have been the sunlight or something. It just fucking knocked me on my mental ass, I looked around and was like, what the fuck? Where am I? What am I doing? Oh, wait, I'm in the car. I was going somewhere. I had to pull up my phone and look up a text message to see where I was supposed to be going. Oh, shit, I'm going to... that's the movie theater.
You're in trouble at that point.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, no, I can pull my shit together. I backed the car a little further. The back wheels go off the sidewalk and, onto the street, right? That bump was my next hit. Forget it. I couldn't do it. I looked around. I could not figure out how much I had to turn the wheel in order to move the car out of the driveway and onto the street.
You're completely useless.
Shit, I am in
Here's
trouble.
your sign.
I put the car back into drive, pulled it into the garage. I think I even bumped my workbench on the way back in. Shut the garage door, walk up back inside, look at my brother, and he looks at me like he was shocked. Like, I think maybe he was high too, but he was like, wait, how long have you been gone? I think he asked me, so he must have been
told like 12 hours.
He's like, dude, I didn't even make it down the driveway. And he loses. He's laughing his ass off. I had to shoot her a text. I'm too high. I'm sorry. We'll have to do it another day. Yeah, that's my story. So let's end this episode with. I thought this was hilarious. There is actually a wiki post on dedicated to how many nicknames there are for marijuana and different meanings of it, like ingesting it or smoking it. And I'm not going to read all of these because there's literally hundreds. But I pulled out some of the funnier ones, and I figured, that's a funny way to end this 2-hour episode. This is the longest episode we've ever recorded.
Wow. Of course, It's about weed.
Right. We forgot that we were supposed to end it. Something along those lines. So
Definitely a topic that we're unfamiliar with.
For the cause of all of this, we'll have to give it some names, and those names might be something along the lines of 420, Bud, Cabbage, Catnip, Chiba, Christmas Tree, Chronic, the Kryptonite. What else we got here? The Dank, the Devil's Lettuce.
I always like that one.
Love
that one's one of my
dude.
favorites.
The Devil's Lettuce. Jolly Green, Joy Smoke, KGB, which is Killer Green Bud. Dope, as Thomas already had mentioned. Kush, Laughing Grass, Flower, Loco Weed, Ganja, Grass, Mary Jane, Mota, Pot, Herb, Tree, Skunk, the Sticky Icky, Wacky Tobacco, and of course, Weed.
Mary Jane.
The wacky tobacco.
Wacky Tobacco.
That's one of my favorites, too.
And some of the funny terms for using or consuming cannabis. Getting baked, getting blasted, getting blazed, burn one or burn one down, getting high, of course. Hot boxing, which is actually kind of a method of smoking, but nevertheless.
Used to do that in the car when I was a teenager.
Hell yeah, dude, in high school, exactly. Getting ripped.
That's just smoking in an enclosed space.
That's all hot boxing is, yeah. Taking a toke, vaping, and taking a hit. And, of course, if you were so inclined, waking and baking.
The wake and bake.
The wake and
that's
bake.
That's how you know you're on vacation.
Yeah. Yes. All right, guys. Hopefully you actually sat through that whole episode with us. If you were high, you probably forgot and shut it off. But nevertheless, you might have still been
cookies
listening.
right now.
Yeah, since Glenn taught you how to make cookies. And, if nothing else, if you aren't interested in weed, at least you know a lot more about it. And,
For sure.
Knowing is half the battle. We'll take the G.I. Joe route on that one. Thanks for listening, guys. Until next time. Show notes and other info can be found at our website, greatdistraction.com. The Great Distraction is listed in iTunes, and we greatly appreciate it when our listeners take the time to look us up and leave us a 5-star rating and review. That helps our show grow and motivates us to continue producing content. If you'd like to get in contact with us, you can do so using the email address greatdistractionpodcast@gmail.com or via our website. We're always interested in hearing any thoughts, comments, or questions from our listeners. Keeping up on the latest from us can be done in several different ways. You can add us to your favorite RSS feed tracker. The link is available on our website or in iTunes. Or you can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Just search for Great Distraction, one word, no space. As always, thank you for listening, and thank you for all the support.